Chapter 26. As soon as Sebastian arrived at the office the next day, he was blocked by Snape. "Why don't you live in Hogwarts every day? The students couldn't find you last night." Sebastian leaned back in his chair and said lazily, "You live in school because it's convenient. I have a wife. In order to go home to see my wife, I specifically asked Professor McGonagall to help me connect the fireplace in my office to the flow network before school started. Wouldn't it be nice to sleep with your wife in your arms?" Seeing Sebastian's boastful face, Snape suddenly felt furious. He stood up straight and said slowly, "Many young Slytherin wizards came to you last night, wanting to sign up for the Muggle Studies class. They couldn't find you, so they got the poor potions professor out of bed. I hope this celebrity professor can understand the difficulties faced by ordinary professors and handle these problems himself, okay?" With that, Snape threw his robes aside and strode out of Sebastian's office. He didn't want to even look at that ostentatious face. And he doesn't want to stay in this shabby office for even a second. Looking at Snape's departing back, Sebastian was a little puzzled. "A group of people came to my office to find me? Last night? That doesn't sound like the Slytherin snakes. Why does this sound so much like something the Gryffindor lion cubs would do? Is it that urgent?" Sebastian couldn't understand the young wizard's thoughts. He somewhat underestimated the impact of his novel teaching method on the students. But the young wizards are now very anxious and they are eager to sign up for the Muggle Studies class. They saw with their own eyes yesterday that nearly 60 little wizards disappeared for the entire afternoon and appeared again when it was almost bedtime. Everyone was extremely curious, and their gossip spirits were burning. "Where did it go? Aren't we taking Muggle Studies class? Why did a group of people go out in the afternoon? And he didn't come back until night?" So, when Charlie and the others returned to the dormitory, they were immediately surrounded by their friends. When Charlie and the others saw that they had become the focus of attention, they immediately became excited and began to talk about their experiences incessantly. "Everything I said was true. I had a great day today. Professor Swan is my idol. I will not forgive anyone who speaks ill of Professor Swan." Sebastian's name once again became the focus of attention of young wizards. Unlike the previous Quidditch star, this time he became famous as a professor. "So envious. The professor took me out to play. The professor invites students to play games. The professor treated us to dinner. No matter which one is picked out, the little wizards will be extremely excited. Hateful. Why didn't I sign up for Muggle Studies before?" The senior students were full of regrets, but the third-year little wizards didn't think so. "Didn't we just have one class? I want to sign up too. I want to take Muggle Studies class too." As soon as Sebastian arrived at the auditorium at noon, he was surrounded by enthusiastic young wizards. He felt like a small boat in a strong wind, unable to stand steadily, and his ears were filled with the shouting of the little wizards. "Professor, I want to sign up too. Professor, I really like Muggle Studies class, please accept me. Professor. Please don't turn away souls who love learning." Sebastian's eyes were filled with the noisy heads of the little wizards. He raised his hand with difficulty and asked the little wizards to calm down. The little wizards are so enthusiastic. Fortunately, I was prepared. Thanks to Snape for tipping me off. What a good buddy, very nice. He calmed down and told the plan he had prepared long ago, "Don't worry, everyone. Any third-grade wizard can sign up for my course. Just hand in your papers together next time you go to class." Hearing this, a little wizard couldn't help but shouted, "But Professor, we were absent from the last class. What should we do if we didn't see those items?" Sebastian smiled and said, "Little Muggle wizards and half-blood wizards, you can find inspiration from your previous lives. As for the pure-blooded little wizard, I believe you have all been to King's Cross Station, so let's use it as an example. I will post the specific requirements on the bulletin board, please check it out for yourself." Then, he pointed to the two little red-haired wizards in the crowd and said, "You two Mr. Weasleys, please don't crowd here with the second-year students. Your classes won't start until next year." "Professor, this is not fair." Fred was indignant. "We love learning too. You can't reject us just because we are only in the second grade. Professor, why don't you talk to Headmaster Dumbledore and make Muggle Studies a compulsory course so you don't have to worry?" George also echoed. After hearing what the twins said, the second-year wizards all started to make a noise. "Yes, Professor, please discuss it with the principal. We are not afraid of getting tired. Hearing their slogans, some first-grade kids also crowded over and started shouting in unison. Sebastian had a headache. He looked around and saw little wizards from all 4 academies. Good job! The slogan is consistent enough. Weren't they throwing dung bombs at each other the day before yesterday? This is a team that treats itself as the boss. Now we are united enough. In desperation, he had to bring up Professor McGonagall's name and used a trick, the ball-passing method. How about this? Why don't you go see Professor McGonagall first? As long as she agrees for you to take the 3rd-year course now, I have no problem with that. When they heard that they were going to find Professor McGonagall, the little wizards dispersed angrily. Fred muttered as he walked, Professor Swan is so mean. He actually asked us to find Professor McGonagall. Yes, Professor McGonagall will definitely scold us. George agreed, it's all Percy and Charlie's fault. They kept talking about how easy bicycles are and how fun games are. Yes, yes. And Muggle burgers and Coke. Fred was somewhat indignant. He shouted, let's go find them. After saying that, the 2 of them led a group of 2nd-year Gryffindor wizards and ran away in a hurry. Seeing that the little wizards around Sebastian had dispersed, Professor Flitwick, who was standing nearby, came over and said cheerfully, Congratulations, Sebastian, you are now the most popular professor in the school. Besides, I just saw Marcus from Slytherin talking and laughing with a little wizard from Hufflepuff. I've never seen this kind of scene before. At this point, Flitwick showed a hint of relief on his face and continued, You are determined to break down the barriers within the academy, and this has already begun to bear fruit. After saying that, he patted Sebastian on the shoulder and said excitedly, Sebastian, if you need any help, don't forget me. Chapter 27. The Muggle Studies class was heated up for the entire day. Young wizards, those who had been there, those who had not, junior and senior students, were all discussing yesterday's Muggle Studies class. This hot topic came to an end only after dinner. The young wizards began to discuss tomorrow's Quidditch trials enthusiastically. In the Gryffindor common room, Charlie, as the captain of the Gryffindor team, was making a pre-war declaration to his teammates. I hope everyone can cheer up for tomorrow's tryouts. Give it your all and beat those Slytherin guys. Come on. We are the strongest. Come on. Let's first guess how tomorrow's selection will be. At 8:20 on Saturday morning, when Sebastian arrived on the front lawn of the castle, the Quidditch teams from all 4 houses were already there. Even Professor McGonagall was here, she was a huge Quidditch fan. She didn't want to miss such a big event as the Quidditch school team selection. The lawn was packed with people, and almost all the young wizards who were interested in Quidditch were there. What Hogsmeade! Just stand aside when it comes to Quidditch. Today's auditions were hosted by Professor Swan himself. Don't forget, before Professor Swan came to Hogwarts, he was the world's #1 seeker. Besides, isn't this the Quidditch school team tryouts? Why don't you go to the stadium? The students were all looking forward to seeing what unique tricks Professor Swan, who was so versatile in the Muggle Studies class, would use in the Quidditch trials. Sebastian looked at the 4 house Quidditch teams with satisfaction. Very good. Very energetic. He frowned slightly when he saw the Slytherin team. Marcus looks like. It lowered the average appearance of the Slytherin team a lot. Forget it. It's not a beauty pageant. Just be good at Quidditch. Sebastian greeted Professor McGonagall, then waved his hand and asked everyone to follow him to the bottom of the castle. After a while, he brought the little wizards to an open flat area beside the Black Lake. He first took out a few flying brooms specially used for the selection, and then took out the alchemical props specially prepared for the selection, a scoreboard more than 2 meters high. Sebastian stretched out his wand, used magic to stand the scoreboard firmly on the ground, and then waved it towards the Black Lake. Suddenly, colorful halos appeared above the Black Lake, like thousands of gorgeous rainbows, shining in the bright sunshine. They surround the Black Lake, arranged in a high and low, staggered manner. The diameter of the halo is 2 meters, and there is a big number on it. Between some halos, there are black light balls in the shape of wandering balls constantly shuttling back and forth. Seeing this scene, the little wizards were immediately excited. What kind of magic is this? It's so beautiful. Are the contestants supposed to ride on broomsticks and drill through these halos? Look! Ring 11 is very close to the lake. After it dives down from ring 10, it will rush into the water if you are not careful. Not only that. Look far ahead. After you fly over Halo number 20, you must immediately turn right, otherwise you will miss Halo No 21. Seeing this, Professor McGonagall walked over to Sebastian and exclaimed, "It's amazing, Sebastian, that you can control your spells so precisely from such a distance. I'm a little curious, how far have you come in magic now? However, we will talk about this later, let's start with the trials." Nodding to Professor McGonagall, Sebastian gathered the stunned Quidditch players together. This morning's trials tested each contestant's basic skills flying ability. All you need to do is ride your broomstick, accurately pass through each halo, and circle the Black Lake. Only the 14 fastest and best flyers will be able to enter the special trials in the afternoon. Sebastian raised his hand, pointed to the 2 rings closest to them and explained, "The time starts when you pass through Halo number 1 and ends when you break through Halo number 36. You need to note that the next halo will turn green only after you successfully pass through the previous halo. If the halo in front of you does not turn green, you need to return in time and pass through the previous halo again. Otherwise, your result will be invalid." In addition, during the flight, each time a part of the body touches these halos, the flight time will increase by 2 seconds. If hit by a black light ball, the flight time will increase by 10 seconds. If you still don't understand, you can look at the rules introduction on the back of the scoreboard, which has detailed pictures and text instructions. For the sake of fairness, we will draw lots to determine the order of appearance. After the draw, Sebastian encouraged the players who looked nervous, "Don't be nervous, one bad flight is nothing, everyone has 3 chances. The final score will be based on the shortest flight time. Contestant number 1, you have 10 minutes to prepare." Dissolution. Looking at the number 1 in his hand, Charlie took a deep breath. "I'm not having good luck. But it doesn't matter, let me, the captain, lead the way for the team members." Shaking his head, he cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and began to carefully observe the halo on the Black Lake, then simulated it in his mind. At this time, the Black Lake was crowded with little wizards watching, and their discussions never stopped. "Oops! Number 1 is so unlucky. He only has 10 minutes to prepare." "That's right, the further you go, the more advantages you have. After all, you can learn from the experience of the players ahead of you." "I don't think so. I feel like the more I watch, the more nervous I get. I might as well take a flight early." It seems that Professor Swan's rule is quite reasonable. Each person gets 3 chances, and only the fastest one counts. Professor Swan may be a Slytherin, but he's still pretty fair. Yes. He even prepared his broomstick, which avoids unfairness in terms of equipment. Fred and George from Gryffindor squeezed next to the Gryffindor team members and cheered them on. When they found out that Charlie was the unlucky contestant number 1, they all consoled him, "Charlie, we believe that you are the best." "That's right. Your ball skills have been certified by Professor McGonagall." Unfortunately, Charlie was so immersed in the flight simulation in his mind at the time that he didn't hear what they said at all. Instead, he thought his brothers were a bit noisy. 10 minutes passed in a flash, and Sebastian stood up and shouted loudly with a booming spell, "The Quidditch school team tryouts have officially begun. Player number 1, get ready." Charlie walked out of the crowd, with cheers of encouragement coming from all behind him. He rode on a flying broom, looked at the number 1 halo which had turned green, and silently encouraged himself. "Come on." Chapter 28. Charlie kicked the ground hard, and the broomstick suddenly whooshed out like an arrow. Looking at his flying posture, Sebastian admired it in his heart. "It flies very well." As expected, he is the Gryffindor Quidditch captain. After retracting his gaze from Charlie, he called contestant number 2 to his side and instructed him, "After Charlie flies over Halo 12, Halo 1 will turn green again. You can set off then." "No problem, Professor. I just looked at the rules on the back of the scoreboard and I know everything." After saying this, the young Slytherin wizard got on his broomstick and began to wait nervously. At this moment, Charlie was sitting on the broom, with the sound of the whistling wind filling his ears. He tried hard to keep his balance, concentrating on controlling the broom, and passed through one halo after another perfectly. After a rapid climb and successfully passing through halo number 10, Charlie adjusted his body slightly. "Hateful. It seems like I just hit the aperture. Be focused." Next we reach the first difficulty, Aperture 11. Should I slow down and pass through? After just a slight hesitation, Charlie made up his mind. He decided to give it a try. He lowered his body, almost sticking to the broom, and tightly grasped the wooden handle of the broom with both hands, diving down from a great height. His eyes were fixed on aperture number 11, and he was silently calculating the distance in his mind. Closer, the time is now. Charlie gave the broom a jerk, causing it to begin to slow down. Under the effect of inertia, he successfully passed through aperture number 11. Then he controlled the flying broom, accelerated suddenly, and flew out close to the water surface. Wow! The little wizards watching the battle cheered. Such a beautiful operation. They thought Charlie would crash into the water at such a high speed. That's great, Charlie! Fly beautifully! The little wizards shouted and jumped for joy, and even the Slytherin students were impressed by Charlie's difficult moves and applauded. After Charlie passed the number 12 halo, the number 2 Slytherin wizard rushed out in a hurry. He waved to contestant number 3 who had been waiting on the side and asked him to get ready. Sebastian said to Professor McGonagall, "Professor, I think Charlie flies very well. If nothing unexpected happens, he will definitely get a spot on the school team." Professor McGonagall was so happy that he couldn't stop smiling. "I have always been optimistic about this child. I have always suggested that he become a professional Quidditch player after graduation." Professor McGonagall frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "Sebastian, I have a question about the scoreboard. Look at Charlie's name. Why is the time between the two rings recorded? Can't we just record the total flight time?" Hearing Professor McGonagall's question, the little wizards pricked up their ears and admired in their hearts. "Professor, you really understand us. We have this question too. I've been wanting to ask this for a long time." Sebastian patiently explained, "Professor McGonagall, the placement of each two halos is very particular. Different placement positions test different flying skills. Take Charlie, for example. Do you think the speed at which he passes through halos number 23, 24, and 25 has become much slower? This shows that Charlie still lacks in continuous rapid turns. By recording the time it takes to pass through each ring, we can visually see the flying shortcomings of the young wizards." At this point, Sebastian smiled slightly and looked at Charlie, who was flying closer and closer. If I told Charlie directly that your continuous rapid turns are not good, he might not be convinced. After all, people generally cannot accept others pointing out their shortcomings. Now, with these numbers, I don't have to waste my breath. Because your own grades will not deceive you." After hearing this explanation, the little wizards suddenly understood. No wonder. The first selection was set up so complicatedly. It turns out that there are different inspection projects. Professor Swan is amazing. Even the selection competition can make so much sense. After hearing what Professor Swan said, some Quidditch team captains felt a little embarrassed. They thought about how Quidditch teams were selected in previous years. Compared with Professor Swan, it's really childish. Professor Swan is really professional. No wonder he is the best seeker in the world. Fred from Gryffindor said loudly, "No wonder I thought Charlie was flying a little slowly just now, it turns out that rapid turns are his weakness." George also said, "Fast turning means real speed. Who doesn't speed up when flying in a straight line?" Sebastian directed Charlie to land, and after he stood firm, he congratulated him, 3 minutes and 11 seconds, great flight. Charlie glanced at the scoreboard and asked anxiously, "Professor, isn't it 3 chances? When can I fly the second time? I think I can fly faster." "Don't worry, go and rest first. I'll call you after contestant number 28 leaves." At this moment, in Sebastian's magical perception, contestant number 4 had a small problem. Plop! A huge splash of water appeared under the halo of number 11. The young wizards were in an uproar and shouted, "Professor, someone fell into the water, save him." Sebastian stretched out his wand and pointed it at the water surface under the halo of number 11, and the little wizard who fell into the water floated up from the water. Then, he turned his wrist slightly and cast a drying spell on the young wizard. "It's not good to catch a cold." The little wizard floating in the air felt a little dazed. He shook his head to sober himself up. "Oh! It was the professor who saved me." A wave of warmth came over him, and he felt his clothes becoming dry again. Looking at the broom in his hand, he quickly mounted it and accelerated towards the next halo. After this incident, the contestants became cautious, fearing that they would be the next to make a fool of themselves. After contestant number 28 took off for the third time, several second-year wizards surrounded Sebastian. "Professor, we also want to participate in the selection. Fred shouted. Yes. We want to try it too, the other little wizards echoed. Seeing Fred and George leading the way, Professor McGonagall was somewhat moved and persuaded, Sebastian, how about letting them try? They will participate in the team recruitment of various colleges next week, so it would be more convenient to try next week. If you are tired, you can go and rest first, I will help you watch over it. Sebastian raised his wrist to check the time. 11:16. It's still early. He raised his head and said to the little wizards generously, no problem. Maybe we can discover one or two geniuses. Chapter 29. The little wizards cheered and immediately started to prepare in an orderly manner. Looking at these little second-grade kids, Sebastian also felt a little excited. Based on his impressions of the movies in his previous life, he could recognize several of the little wizards. Gryffindor's Fred Weasley, George Weasley, Angelina Johnson, and Alicia Spinnet. Cedric Diggory of Hufflepuff. Graham Montague of Slytherin. Roger Davis of Ravenclaw. Good job. They later became the main players of the Quidditch teams of various colleges. I wonder if these little guys can bring me surprises? Unexpectedly, there were actually 3 little wizards who made it into the top 14. Fred Weasley, George Weasley, Cedric Diggory. Among them, Cedric actually achieved a good result of 8th place. As expected of the character in the movie who became Captain Hufflepuff in the 3rd grade. The performance of other young wizards was not so impressive. After all, compared with the old team members, their flying experience is much worse. It is reasonable to achieve such results. However, their talent is still pretty good. Although there is some gap between them and the top talents, they will definitely be able to join the Quidditch teams of various colleges this year. Seeing that Gryffindor had so many talented Quidditch players, Professor McGonagall was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. She gathered the Gryffindor players together and praised them non-stop. Fred in the crowd suddenly had an idea. He and George huddled together and whispered something, then he shouted to Sebastian, Professor Swan. Can you show us what you are capable of? Let us see how powerful you are. Fred's shout immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding little wizards. Let the professor take the stage? What a great idea. I wonder how the professor will fly through Halo number 11. Will it be embarrassing? I really want to see it. They became excited and started to make a noise. Professor, show us your skills. Show us your skills. Professor, don't show us any mercy, crush us hard with your grades. Professor Swan, you are not scared anymore. Let's see how well the world's #1 seeker flies. Hearing the little wizards booing, Sebastian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let yourself play? Don't you want to have pity on me? He looked around, and there was anticipation in the eyes of every little wizard. Oh, how can I say no in this situation? It's hard to refuse such a kind invitation. But this is what you asked for. It's not my fault that I'm autistic. He laughed out loud. In that case, I will give you a live lesson. Then he waved his hand and summoned a flying broom and rode on it. He pushed hard with his feet and rushed towards Halo number 1. The young wizards stared at Sebastian's every move, afraid of missing any details. They wanted to know how the world's #1 seeker would perform. Soon, they were stunned, their mouths opened wide in disbelief. Professor Swan flies so smoothly. Like a free bird. Charlie had flown well enough before. But compared with Professor Swan, it's totally not good enough. Take a look. This silky turn, no deceleration at all. Next up are the 10th and 11th rings. Wow! Merlin's beard. How is it possible? The little wizards exclaimed. What did they see? After Professor Swan rushed out from the Halo number 10, he actually dived down in a rotation. He accurately passed through Halo number 11, then soared into the sky and flew towards the next Halo. Is this something a human can do? We are both Quidditch players, why are you so good? The little wizards were excited. Oh my god! The professor is amazing. This is the value of being the world's #1 seeker. Watch carefully, the professor can accurately pass through the center of the halo every time. The professor has always been flying the best route. This way he can avoid slowing down as much as possible and sprint at full speed. Damn it! I didn't bring my magic camera. If I recorded this, it would definitely sell like hotcakes. Sebastian then showed off his various skills, providing the little wizards with a wonderful visual feast. When he passed through Circle 36, the young wizards all looked at the scoreboard. They are eager to know what the professor will achieve. 1 minute and 59 seconds. Oh my god! Much faster than Charlie's best time of 2 minutes 38 seconds. How could it be so fast? So awesome! The young wizards could no longer stand still, and they cheered and rushed towards Sebastian, who was slowly descending. As soon as he landed, he was surrounded by little wizards, who were jumping and shouting wildly, making his ears hurt. Professor McGonagall stood by and watched the excitement with a smile on his face, with no intention of going up to help. It took Sebastian a lot of effort to calm the little wizards down. He said loudly, "This concludes today's morning trials. The top 14 contestants will gather at the Quidditch pitch at 2 p.m. You have 2 hours to rest. I hope you can rest well and be refreshed for the tryouts this afternoon." After saying that, he put away his broom, said hello to Professor McGonagall hastily, and walked away quickly. Sebastian didn't even dare to go to the auditorium, but went straight back to his office, fearing that he would be surrounded by enthusiastic young wizards again. He first enjoyed a hearty lunch in the office, then lay down comfortably in the lounge and had a nice nap. At 2 p.m., when Sebastian arrived at the Quidditch pitch, the 14 winners from the morning were already there. He didn't waste any time and immediately started the afternoon's trials. The 14 contestants took turns to take the test in the order of the morning. In order to prevent everyone from competing for the same position, Sebastian specifically asked the contestants to compete in all events. First, as a chaser, he conducted a hit rate test on the quaffle. Secondly, as a batsman, attack the bludger while flying at high speed so that it hits the moving alchemy doll. Then as a goalkeeper, conduct a defensive test. Each test was conducted 3 times as in the morning, and the best score was taken as the final result. Finally, he let the players experience the feeling of being a seeker. However, it was difficult to find most of the contestants. Only Charlie and Cedric performed well. Gryffindor's Wood was even more dumbfounded when he got to the court, and couldn't find the golden snitch at all. There was no way out. The seeker test was only carried out for 1 round before Sebastian had to stop it. Chapter 30. After an afternoon of testing, 7 contestants stood out and became members of the Hogwarts Quidditch team. The seeker was 7th-year Gryffindor Charlie Weasley. The goalkeeper was 4th-year Gryffindor Oliver Wood. The 2 batsmen were 5th-year Slytherin Marcus Flint and 7th-year Ravenclaw witch Debbie Henry. The 3 chasers are 7th-year Slytherin student Landon Coker, 7th-year Ravenclaw student Paul Ford, and 2nd-year Hufflepuff student Cedric Diggory. Among them, Charlie was appointed captain of the school Quidditch team with his first-place selection result. Sebastian was still somewhat surprised by this result. Not to mention a few senior students, after all, they already have many years of Quidditch experience, so it is not surprising that they were selected. Among them, Wood is a well-known Quidditch fanatic, and no matter wind or rain, his training has never been affected. Charlie and the others still held the same positions as before. Those who were seekers were still seekers, and those who were goalkeepers were still goalkeepers. But, wasn't Marcus a chaser before? How come he could always hit the bludger so accurately? And Cedric Diggory? He is just a 2nd-grade wizard. Is the talent so high? Also, if I remember correctly, Cedric in the original book was a seeker. Unexpectedly, he is also quite talented as a chaser. Who said the badger doesn't know how to attack? The shooting is quite accurate. A large group of Hufflepuff wizards surrounded Cedric and congratulated him. Even the senior students who were not selected did not hesitate to give their blessings. I can only say that they are worthy of being little badgers, and their main theme is unity and friendship. Why? If only all Hogwarts students were as friendly as the badgers. Sebastian didn't have the heart to interrupt the little wizard's celebration, so he just said loudly, "The 7 selected students will gather at the Quidditch field at 5:30 p.m. on Monday. Enjoy this weekend." Seeing the professor leave, the young wizards started to celebrate. They surrounded the school team players and returned to their respective common rooms. "Let's celebrate today." On the way back to the Slytherin common room, Marcus paid for several students to go to Hogsmeade to buy butterbeer. Afterwards, he made a bold statement, "No one can stop today's celebration, not even the professors." The young Slytherin wizards cheered and rushed to the common room playfully, completely unaware of Snape's face turning dark when he heard their shouting. Only 2 people were selected. What's there to be happy about? Snape stood at the door of the office and endured again and again, but in the end he did not interrupt the interest of these little guys. "Take care of your students. Take care of your students." He took a deep breath, repeated it to himself twice, then turned back to his office and slammed the door shut. On Monday afternoon, 7 young wizards arrived at the Quidditch field early with their brooms. They stood in pairs according to their respective houses and chatted, with only Cedric standing alone in the middle. "There's nothing we can do about it, since Hufflepuff was the only little wizard selected." This was the scene Sebastian saw when he arrived at the Quidditch pitch. He sighed inwardly. Why? There is still a long way to go to break down barriers. Waving to the students, Sebastian said loudly, "The 7 selected students, come here, I have gifts for you." Hearing that there were gifts, the little ones became interested and gathered around. Even the little wizards watching on the sidelines stretched their necks to take a look. They were all very interested in what Professor Swan would give to the school team members. After all, in the eyes of the little wizards, Professor Swan is famous for his generosity. Seeing the 7 students coming to him, Sebastian took out 7 large gift boxes he had prepared and handed them to them. "What are you waiting for? Open it and take a look." After hearing what the professor said, the students looked at each other and could no longer suppress their curiosity, so they opened the gift box. Inside was a black Quidditch uniform, with a matching Quidditch hat and a pair of windproof glasses. Seeing this full set of equipment, Charlie immediately took off his jersey and put it on. "Wow!" Seeing Charlie fully dressed, the little wizards who were watching exclaimed in amazement. "So cool! This black jersey looks so classy. It's much better looking than the uniforms of the various colleges. And the Hogwarts crest. I want it so badly." The Weasley twins who were standing on the sidelines ran directly to Charlie and began to caress the uniform lovingly, which made Charlie feel a chill. While the other players were wearing the uniforms, Sebastian said to them, "This uniform is more than just cool. It's waterproof and has a heat-insulating function, so you won't be too cold even in winter. The hat can protect your heads from being hit by the bludgears and causing serious injuries. Windproof glasses are not only windproof, but also dustproof and waterproof. This way, you can see clearly even in heavy rain. I arranged for Swan to prepare these for you on Sunday, as a benefit for you to join the school Quidditch team." After hearing these words, several contestants suddenly felt full of strength and wanted to fly up to the sky on their brooms for a few laps. They puffed out their chests, their faces beaming with pride, and they all sighed in their hearts that their hard work paid off. The little wizards who were watching started shouting even more. "Professor! We want it too! Professor, is it sold in Swan's alchemy? Professor, I made a mistake during the trials. Please give me another chance." Hearing the cries of the young wizards, Sebastian quickly comforted them, "This selection will be fair, just, and open. Don't worry, guys who weren't selected. The school team will reselect every year when school starts. You guys train hard and do your best next year. As long as you are selected for the school team, you will have equipment. Students who have been selected should not slack off. It would be very embarrassing if they were not selected next year." After that, he took out 7 brooms and handed them to the 7 team members. The little guys were stunned. "What's going on? Join the team and get a flying broom. Or this year's latest model sweeping 7 stars. The professor is very generous." They quickly asked, "Professor, is this also for us?" Sebastian said angrily, "What the hell is that? These brooms are the property of the school Quidditch team. You only have the right to use these brooms. What are you waiting for? Let's start practicing." Chapter 31. Since arriving at Hogwarts, Sebastian has been preparing Muggle supplies and school team uniforms, all of which he paid for out of his own pocket. As a capitalist, how could he spend huge sums of money in vain? He is not a saint. The reason for being so generous is, on the one hand, to improve the quality of teaching and win people's hearts, and on the other hand, the real purpose is not to teach. Sebastian has never forgotten his ambition, to become the White Lord of the wizarding world. However, he really disliked Voldemort's terrorist theories. What pure-blood rule? What do you mean Muggle wizards are inferior? It's so low. What era is this? The theory of bloodline is no longer popular. The royal families in the Muggle world have become mascots. Moreover, there are only a few pure-blood wizards now. How many Muggles and half-blood wizards are there? What's more, no matter whether they are Muggle wizards, half-blood wizards, or pure-blood wizards, they are all wizards in the final analysis and are essentially the same. If you want to oppress Muggles and half-blood wizards and suck their blood, how could you not cause resistance? This guy Voldemort wanted to rule the wizarding world by force and oppression, but he never succeeded, and in the end he was just jumping around in Britain. Let's look at the first Dark Lord, Grindelwald, whose influence spread across all of Europe, even to the United States across the ocean. Comparing the two Dark Lords, Voldemort was completely defeated in both ideas and power. Not to mention the image. Is there any comparison? Besides, Sebastian doesn't think highly of the title of Dark Lord. What Dark Lord? He doesn't sound like a good guy. How can he gain everyone's trust? Moreover, the learning experience of my previous life told me that as long as I am separated from the people, failure is inevitable sooner or later. We still have to go through official channels and unite the wizards. After all, in the original book, the wizards trust the official the most. This requires great prestige. It is impossible to do this as a businessman or a Quidditch player. Therefore, Sebastian came to Hogwarts in advance and became a professor. After all British wizards graduated from Hogwarts. He planned to use his familiarity with the plot to start planning ahead of time and win over the hearts of the students. After a few years, if he could defeat Voldemort himself, he would definitely gain a lot of reputation. By then, it would be very convenient to either enter the Ministry of Magic to engage in politics or to arrange for one of his own to become the Minister of Magic. People called on Dumbledore to become the Minister of Magic because he defeated two Dark Lords, but he just refused. In this case, there is still a problem. Sebastian's strength is still not enough. If one wants to make the magic world run according to one's will, one not only needs extremely high reputation, but also strong strength as a backing. The law of the jungle is an eternal truth. He knew very well that he was no match for the resurrected Voldemort. Therefore, he was eager to learn Dumbledore's unique spells and improve his strength. Not only that, when he was a child, he made a vow to learn all the awesome spells like the God of Fire opening the way. However, this kind of spell is relatively private, and Dumbledore has never demonstrated it in front of others, so Sebastian has no chance to learn it secretly. When he just graduated, he specifically asked Dumbledore for advice, but was ruthlessly rejected by Dumbledore on the grounds that he was too young. After arriving at Hogwarts again, he didn't know how to start. It would be bad if Dumbledore misunderstood me again. So, Sebastian came up with a bad idea. Throw money at it. So he spent all his galleons on Muggle studies and the school Quidditch team. Sebastian's calculations were particularly loud. If he asked Dumbledore for reimbursement now, he would definitely not be able to come up with the money. So he took the opportunity to ask to learn magic, and Dumbledore should find it difficult to refuse. Hey. Although the means are not very glorious, as long as the goal can be achieved, after all, I am a Slytherin. It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch mice, it is a good cat. After dinner, Sebastian walked leisurely towards the principal's office, thinking smugly in his heart as he walked. It's been so long since the school started, it's time to settle some accounts. Headmaster. Here I come. He. In the headmaster's office, Dumbledore was leaning back in his chair, drinking Coke leisurely. Belch. Comfortable. He adjusted his beard contentedly and leaned back in his chair. There were no little wizards playing tricks. There is no business to be dealt with. The life of a principal is so comfortable. Suddenly, a portrait came running over and told him that Professor Swan was walking towards the principal's office. Upon hearing the news, he quickly put away his Coke and took out an academic magazine and placed it in front of him. The image of the principal still needs to be maintained. Let Professor Swan see that even at his age, he cannot stop learning. Soon Dumbledore heard the door of the headmaster's office open. He looked up at Sebastian, who was approaching, and smiled slightly. Good evening, Sebastian. What do you want to talk to me about? Please take a seat. As he said that, he took out a cup and placed it in front of Sebastian, winking playfully. Would you like something to drink? Tea? Pumpkin juice? Or Coke? Sebastian was not polite either. He took out his wand and made the cup bigger, then asked for a full cup of Coke, which made Dumbledore feel painful. After taking a big sip from the cup, he looked at Dumbledore and said, Principal Dumbledore, I do have a little trouble that I need you to solve. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand, put his thumb and index finger together, and kept rubbing them. He said shyly, just a little trouble. Dumbledore didn't understand what Sebastian meant for a moment, so he could only ask curiously, what's the trouble? I'll do my best to help you. I feel relieved when you say that. Sebastian was very happy. It's already the second week of school. Can you reimburse me for the expenses of my Muggle Studies class? Dumbledore asked in surprise. Muggle Studies? Expenses? Seeing Dumbledore's puzzled expression, Sebastian immediately knew that it was time to test his acting skills. Yes, Headmaster, Professor McGonagall told me that the teaching aids that professors prepare for their courses can be reimbursed. I prepared so many teaching aids for the Muggle Studies class, and the little wizards all liked them. Look, Sebastian rubbed his hands together and smiled at Dumbledore in a flattering manner. Could you reimburse me for these expenses? Hearing this, Dumbledore felt a little bit enlightened. Indeed. There is a rule when recruiting professors. Moreover, he had heard from many young wizards that Sebastian had prepared a warehouse full of Muggle supplies. It is indeed a considerable expense. It really wasn't appropriate to ask Sebastian to pay for it. It is reasonable and moral that the school should reimburse the expenses. Only. How many galleons will this cost? I don't know if I can handle it. Chapter 32. Thinking of this, Dumbledore took a sip of the Coke and asked nervously, how many gold galleons do you want? Sebastian immediately showed joy. Let me calculate it for you. A whole warehouse of Muggle supplies cost about 200,000 pounds. At an exchange rate of 1 to 5, that's only about 40,000 gold galleons. There are also warehouse rental costs, and the students' round-trip fares on the night bus, etc. As he spoke, he waved his hand and said generously, I'll give you a small change. Just reimburse me 40,000 gold galleons, and the rest will be my gift to my alma mater. Dumbledore suspected that he had not heard clearly, so he scratched his ears and asked again, how much? 40,000 galleons. Sebastian held out his right hand and made the number 4. How is it? I'm only offering you such a big discount because of your face. If it was someone else, like Severus, the price would be exactly what it should be. I have kept the receipts. What? 40,000 galleons. Dumbledore was overwhelmed. Not to mention 40,000, even if they take out 10,000, the professors will be starving next month. Now he no longer felt comfortable at all, he just felt like an ant on a hot pan. After thinking it over, Dumbledore spread his hands and sighed helplessly. Sebastian, you know the situation at school. We simply can't come up with that many galleons at once. Why don't we think of a way to deal with it? Here we come. This is what I've been waiting for. Sebastian suppressed his inner excitement, covered his face with his hands, and pretended to be embarrassed. That's 40,000 gold galleons. It's not easy to handle. As he spoke, he rubbed his face vigorously with his hands, as if he had made up his mind. How about this, Professor Dumbledore, how about you teach me some unique magic? What about the god of fire opening the way, the water prison, and yes. And your transfiguration, as long as it can improve combat effectiveness, teach me. These are the most valuable things I can think of. 40,000 gold galleons will be my tuition fee to you. What do you think? Hearing these words, Dumbledore immediately understood what was going on. Good boy. Waiting for me here. Asking for debts from yourself is false, thinking about your own curse is real. Dumbledore was very pleased with himself. I have seen through your trick. Not to mention 40,000 gold galleons. Even if I offered you 100,000 gold galleons, you wouldn't want it. But, my own unique magic. I was reluctant to teach Sebastian before because I didn't know what kind of person he was. But now it seems that it is not impossible. In his own eyes, Sebastian is not only young and promising, but also reassuring. As the richest man in the wizarding world, he has also been targeted by many dark wizards. There is nothing wrong with wanting to improve combat effectiveness. It can help me deal with Voldemort in the future. From this perspective, it wouldn't be a bad idea to teach him my unique magic. This way, 40,000 gold galleons were saved directly. Worth it. Moreover, this little guy's acting skills are so natural that if I didn't know his background, I would have been fooled by him. However, it would be meaningless if I agreed to it right away. Tease him. See how this guy proceeds. After figuring out the key, Dumbledore felt relieved. He leaned back in his chair again and said with a smile, in theory, you should apply in advance before the start of the school term, and you can only be reimbursed after passing the review. But the school can't let you suffer any loss. How about we pay in installments, for example, reimburse 5,000 gold galleons first, and then pay the rest later completion. This is not what I expected. Why don't you play by the rules? Look carefully at Lao Deng's reaction. He is smiling and leaning back in his chair in a relaxed manner. It seems that he has seen through my plan. Sebastian immediately wanted to slap himself twice. It's messed up. And he even turned the tables on me. If I really take this money, my reputation will be ruined. Students will only think that Professor Swan seems generous, but he is spending the school's money. In this way, all my initial investment would be wasted. Not to mention winning people's hearts, I'm afraid no student would believe in me anymore. Besides, 40,000 gold galleons are nothing. All I care about is magic. As long as I can learn Dumbledore's unique skills, it would be no problem to spend another 40,000 gold galleons. Why? What's the point of playing strange stories from a Huxia studio in front of this 1,000-year-old fox? This is a ruthless person who has schemed against both Dark Lords. My little cleverness is really not worth mentioning. Sebastian quickly refused, Professor Dumbledore, please don't underestimate me. I know that the school is not doing well right now, and I will definitely stand by the school through thick and thin. I'm not that anxious actually. It's not easy, Dumbledore said without pampering him, but I won't be able to sleep well if the school owes you money. The reputation of Hogwarts cannot be ruined in my hands. How about this, I'll ask all the professors to come over, and we can brainstorm and come up with a solution together. For example, how about having Severus brew some potions, or using the herbs Pomona grows to pay off the debt? In a word, I will never let you suffer any loss. I will pay you back in gold galleons even if I have to sell everything I have. It's numb. Sebastian was completely numb. Can we still have a pleasant chat? Why are you using other professors to put pressure on me? The old guy has no moral principles. The two bargained for a long time, and finally Sebastian had no choice but to say, Professor, we all know that Voldemort will come back sooner or later. Therefore, I want to learn from you and enhance my fighting ability. Is that so? Dumbledore turned serious when Sebastian spoke his mind. You have to know that once you learn my spells, you will be completely on my side in the eyes of others. Sebastian smiled carefreely, Principal Dumbledore, I am the professor of Muggle studies at Hogwarts. In the eyes of others, I am already on your side. Moreover, once Voldemort makes a comeback, he will not let go of the fat piece of meat that is Swan's alchemy. However, my knees have always been too stiff to get down on the ground and kiss someone's robe. Professor, you see, I don't really have a choice, do I? Hearing Sebastian's sincere words, Dumbledore smiled slightly, what about the 40,000 galleons? Sebastian's eyes lit up. This is agreed. Besides, the way Dumbledore had given him was so obvious, he would be a fool not to take advantage of it. He waved his fist and said generously, Professor, don't worry. Just consider this little money as my money. I will also cover the cost of subsequent courses and will definitely not make it difficult for the school. Hearing this, Dumbledore smiled his kindest smile of the night. Sebastian, let's start with Transfiguration. Chapter 33. Dumbledore is indeed the most powerful wizard alive. The Transfiguration spell is so useful. Under his wand, the principal's office seemed to come alive. The bookshelf in the corner turned into a big green tree, and the books on the bookshelf turned into leaves. When a breeze blew, the leaves danced and made a rustling sound. The floor turned into lush green grass and the chairs turned into verdant tree stumps. The office supplies on the table transformed into small animals in the woods, running around the two of them. Even the characters in the portraits on the wall seemed to be in a dense woods, strolling happily through it. It's really eye-opening. Sebastian has always been proud of himself. With his unique magical talent and diligent attitude towards study, he has been crushing all the geniuses in the school in various subjects since he started school. Neither Snape nor the four hijackers could compare to him in terms of magical attainments. To this day, he even arrogantly divides the wizards into different levels of combat power in his mind. Dumbledore is in a class of his own. Voldemort second gear. Next, it's your turn, and everyone else is one level below that. Now, seeing Dumbledore's unique skills, Sebastian suddenly came to his senses. Judging from the limited experience, I am still far behind the top wizards. He silently warned himself in his heart. Sebastian, Sebastian. Stop being so arrogant. It was only a few years until Voldemort's resurrection. Seize the time to improve yourself. Thinking of this, he quickly adjusted his mindset, concentrated on studying. When I came out of the principal's office, it was past curfew. Sebastian felt extremely happy. Although the process is hard to describe in words, the result is great. Walking in the empty corridor, he hummed softly, and when he was happy, he even twisted his body actively. Give me back what you took from me, and spit out what you ate from me. He shua shua. He shua shua. It was not until a portrait protested to him that he stopped with a sense of unfulfilled desire. Oops. So happy. It's been a long time since I had such a satisfying time learning from a top wizard. What to do if you don't have enough fun? It's decided. Let's go catch a few little wizards who are out at night to liven up the fun. Little ones, it is your blessing to meet me. Thinking of this, Sebastian slightly relaxed his magical perception. Well, there are 2 on the 3rd floor, 2 on the 4th floor, and 4 in the kitchen. After a while, he caught 4 of the little wizards, all of whom were Hufflepuffs who were having extra meals in the kitchen. Professor. We were wrong. Professor, we are just hungry. Professor, please let us go. Professor, come and have something to eat. I have butterbeer. Wow. The last one is very capable and even knows how to use food to shut the professor up. Sebastian looked at the little foodies with a puzzled look. No need to eat together. Go back to bed after you finish eating. It's getting late. Since you have a good attitude in admitting your mistakes, I won't deduct any points from you. The little wizards were surprised and happy, and hurriedly thanked Sebastian. After leaving the Hogwarts kitchens, Sebastian frowned slightly. What's going on? There are 2 little wizards wandering around outside. Didn't he just discover me on the 3rd floor and run away in advance? It's been so long and you haven't returned to the dormitory yet? So arrogant. I have such a bad temper. Wait. See where you are running. Let's play hide and seek. Thinking of this, he raised his foot and strode towards the location of the 2 little wizards he perceived. After going up 1 floor, Sebastian realized something was wrong. How come these 2 little guys seem to be able to detect my movements in advance? Every time it deviates from the direction of my movement. Etc. This feeling is somewhat familiar. When I was in school, I had the same battle of wits and courage with a group of 4 people during a night outing. Sebastian used all his senses and found that one of the young wizards was holding an alchemical item. Could it be the Marauder's map? Then these 2 little wizards are definitely the Weasley twins. This is the only way to make it consistent with the plot in my mind. After figuring out what was going on, Sebastian smiled evilly. Hey hey! If you mess with me, you'll be like kicking a steel plate. He stretched out his wand and waved it gently, and the light of the disillusionment charm enveloped his body, making his image blurry. Then he waved his wand again, and a silencing spell formed a faint halo that surrounded him, hiding his movements and sounds without a trace. Finally, he cast a name-hiding charm on himself, so that his name would be hidden from the Marauder's map. Everything is ready. Set off. Standing in front of a mirror on the 4th floor, Sebastian could hear faint conversations coming from behind the mirror. Hey! George, why did Professor Swan's name suddenly disappear? And, until now, I can't find where he is. I don't know either, Fred. Should we go out and take a look? It's no good hiding here all the time. That makes sense. Let's go out quietly and hide if we hear any noise. Okay, let's go. Hearing this, Sebastian quickly dodged and hid to the side. The mirror split into 2 halves, and the twins sneaked out from it. They bent over and walked on tiptoe. Every few steps, they would stop to look at the live map, then stretch their ears and listen attentively to the movements around them. Wow! Very professional. He also knew to crouch down against the wall. It seems that he goes out for night walks quite often. Yes, with the magical artifact, the Marauder's map, in hand, the professors really couldn't find them. Sebastian followed the twins quietly, watching them having fun. The twins didn't feel relieved until they reached another floor. Clear the alert, George. Except for Professor Swan, all other professors are in their lounges. Hey, Fred, it looks like Professor Swan has gone home. Doesn't he go home to sleep every day? Now we're all on our own again, yay! Let's hurry up and explore the corridor we left last time. Sebastian wanted to laugh when he heard that. He cancelled the effects of the silencing spell and the name-hiding spell on himself and continued to follow the twins. Hey, Fred, why do I hear someone following us? I looked back and there's no one there. Check the map. Fred also heard the footsteps. He quickly picked up the Marauder's map and held it to the light to take a look. On the Marauder's map, Sebastian Swan's name was clearly listed behind both of them. Finished. The professor was so insidious that he kept following me. Neither of them noticed. This should be the effect of the disillusionment spell that Charlie mentioned. We are just two little wizards in the 2nd grade. Is there any need to treat us like this? Fred and George were filled with grief and anger, and looked behind them to where the footsteps stopped. Seeing that the effect had been achieved, Sebastian felt extremely relieved. He cancelled the disillusionment charm on himself and smiled at the twins. Hello. Hello, Mr. Weasley. The night is so beautiful, let's take a walk together. Chapter 34. Seeing Sebastian suddenly appear, the Weasley twins were not scared. Instead, they walked up to him, one on the left and one on the right, and grabbed his sleeves. That's so cool. Professor Swan. How did you do that? Is it the disillusionment charm? Can you teach us? Hello, hey. I don't even feel scared at this time. It turns out that my deterrent power is so low. Looking at the twins grinning, Sebastian said unhappily, I'll teach you the disillusionment charm. Will that be convenient for you to go out at night later? Come with me, gentlemen. Fred and George were frightened now. They were worried about being handed over to Professor McGonagall. The thought of Professor McGonagall's stern face made them shudder. If the ruthless Professor McGonagall knew about this, not only would Gryffindor be penalized, but both of them would also be severely reprimanded. It wasn't until they walked into Sebastian's office that Fred and George felt completely relieved. That's good now. At most I'll be deducted points. Professor Swan is so kind and he won't make things difficult for us. In fact, Sebastian has been envious of the twins for a long time. After all, these two little guys are famous geniuses in the original book. Although both of them have always been keen on pranks, they can also be considered little inventors. They like to invent some prank products, such as quick-acting skipping candy and retractable ears. Later, he opened a joke shop in Diagon Alley, which was doing very well. Normally he had no suitable reason to get close to this pair of funny guys, but today they just happened to fall into his hands. Hey! What are you waiting for? Recruit people. We must recruit people. Sebastian's capitalist soul was ignited again. He planned to invest in the two of them now, and recruit them to Swan Alchemy after graduation to let them fully display their strengths. As for joke shops, I can also fund them to set them up, but I will need to find someone to manage them. Mrs. Weasley, for example, would be a good fit. By that time, the children will have grown up and she will be bored at home alone, so it would be a good opportunity to help her find a job. After arranging the two to sit on the sofa, Sebastian took out 2 cups and said kindly, imitating Dumbledore's manner, "What would you like to drink, gentlemen? I have pumpkin juice and butterbeer. Or maybe a muggle drink, Coke." Fred and George looked at each other in surprise, and then said in unison, "Coke." Seeing the bubbling black drink, George was a little hesitant. Is this Coke? Just as Charlie and the others described. It just doesn't look like a good thing. Why this color? Fred didn't think too much about it. He picked up the cup and drank it down with one gulp. He emptied the cup in one gulp and then let out a long burp. Belch. He wasn't shy, instead he looked at Sebastian in surprise and said, "It's really delicious," just like Percy and the others said. "Can I have another drink, Professor Swan?" Seeing Fred's expression, George also swallowed. He no longer hesitated, picked up the cup, and drank it happily, imitating Fred's example. Belch. Seeing the twins' performance, Sebastian didn't get angry. Instead, he let the Coke bottle float up and poured a full cup for each of them again. Looking at Fred and George clinking their glasses, Sebastian chuckled softly. These two troublemakers are quite free and easy. I'm still in the mood for a toast. He smiled kindly and waved to the twins. Show me the map. After getting the Marauder's map, Sebastian felt a little emotional. This is a famous artifact from the movie, and this is the first time I've touched it. He used his magic to sense it carefully, and with his years of alchemy experience, he quickly figured out the secrets of the Marauder's map. It's not technically difficult. This creativity is the most precious. Looking at the names on the map, Sebastian stretched out his wand and pointed it at the map, saying softly, "The prank is over." The writing on the parchment suddenly disappeared, and it became as clean as new. Seeing this scene, Fred and George jumped up in surprise and said excitedly, "Professor, how do you know how to use this map? Are you Prongs or Padfoot? Or Moony? Or Wormtail?" The twins were extremely excited. Since they got the Marauders map, they have been going out for many night walks. The reason why I was not caught by the professors and Filch was all thanks to the map. Now that I have met someone who is suspected to be the producer, I am so happy." Sebastian smiled and denied, "Sorry, neither. But I do know these people. Unfortunately, most of them are my enemies." When Fred and George heard that the professor knew the maker, it suddenly dawned on them. No wonder the professor caught himself so easily. Without waiting for the two to sit back down, Sebastian threw out a bait. "Gentlemen, I wonder if you would like to participate in an alchemy project." "Alchemy project?" The professor invited himself to participate in the alchemy project. "Marvelous." Fred and George looked at each other and said excitedly, "My pleasure, Professor." "What alchemy project?" Sebastian picked up the Marauders map and motioned to the two of them, "Don't be in a hurry. Sit down first. I want you two to imitate the Marauders map and make another map." The twins' eyes were full of confusion, and they asked hurriedly, "Why do you want to imitate it and make another map?" "Professor, if you want a Marauders map, we can give it to you. We have already figured out all the secret passages." Hearing what the two said, Sebastian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How come I act like a bandit, wanting to take all the good stuff I see for myself?" He explained patiently, "Every year after the new students arrive, some people get lost in the castle. The paths in the castle are too complicated, and the stairs keep changing. Not to mention that some of the steps are traps that will get your feet stuck if you step on them. Because of this problem, some first-year wizards will be late for their first class. So, I plan to set up an alchemy project, which is to imitate the Marauders map to create a navigation map." Fred's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he immediately shouted happily, "Cool! I do, Professor. What do you want us to do?" George was a little confused. "Professor Swan, this should be easy for you, why do you leave it to us?" Hearing George's words, Fred suddenly became anxious. He rushed to George, covered George's mouth with his hand, and smiled awkwardly, "Professor, don't listen to him. George is so sleepy that he's started talking nonsense. He actually meant that we were willing." Seeing the twins playing tricks again, Sebastian stretched out his wand to separate them. He had an evil smile on his face and said softly, "Are you too sleepy? Now that you mention it, I remember that I caught you two because you were out at night. In that case, deduct 1 point from each person as a punishment. Gryffindor, 2 points." Chapter 35. Fred and George were horrified and shouted, "Professor, you can't do this. Professor, we were having a great time chatting, why are you deducting points from us?" Looking at the twins with resentful faces, Sebastian felt very happy. "Hee, that's the feeling. The right to deduct points will be used for the first time. Cool." He smiled and said, "This is the first time I've caught you, so I'll only deduct 1 point from each of you as a punishment. After all, deducting points is not the purpose. What the professor wants to see is that you stop going out at night. You are in the growth stage now. Without enough sleep, you will not grow taller. Next time I catch you, I'll deduct 2 points from each of you. The third time I catch you, I'll deduct 4 points from each of you, and so on. Do you understand?" Feeling the firmness in the professor's tone, Fred and George didn't dare to argue anymore. They just patted their chests and promised that they would never go swimming at night again. Sebastian felt a little amused when he saw the two little guys agreed so readily. If this was the first time I dealt with them, I might have been really moved by their sincere attitude. Unfortunately, I know these two people's personalities very well. If these two naughty little guys can avoid wandering at night, then the sun will rise from the west. Most likely he thought that since he often doesn't live in school, he would have plenty of opportunities to go out at night in the future. Sebastian smiled slightly and didn't point out their little thoughts. After all, there was no evidence at the moment. If I show any distrust, the twins will definitely cry out their injustice loudly. So, he suddenly had an idea and took out 100 gold galleons and handed them to George. "By the way, this is the startup capital for the project, take it first." Fred and George looked at each other in disbelief. "Does the project still have startup funds? 100 gold galleons? Merlin! Just give it to yourself like this?" This must be a dream. George quickly stood up and said, Professor, this is too much. We can't accept it. Fred opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he said nothing. Sebastian was a little surprised to see their performance, but considering their performance in the movie, he could still understand their thoughts. They are two good kids who can resist the temptation of money. The Weasley family's family education is really good, and the children have very positive values. He smiled with relief and explained to the twins, take it. These gold galleons are not given to you as a gift. They are the startup funds for the project. You know, at Swan Alchemy, every time a new project is established, financial funding will be allocated after professional project evaluation. Now that I am inviting you to join a new alchemy project, there is no reason for me to ask you to pay for it. Besides, looking at Fred and George with shining eyes, Sebastian said arrogantly, it's only 100 gold galleons. How can it be too much? Follow the professor, gold galleons won't be a problem. This is only the first phase of funding, you have 1 month to spend it all, and there will be new funds next month. But Sebastian changed his tone and explained seriously. You must learn to keep accounts. Remember every single galleon. Do you understand? Merlin's beard. Professor Swan is indeed generous, but it's a pity that the professor seems to be in need of accessories. In that case, we will definitely follow you and work hard. Fred and George were so happy that they clapped their chests loudly. Don't worry, Professor. We will make sure to record every copper nut. Professor, you can trust us completely. Sebastian continued, if you have any questions that you can't solve, you can come to me directly. Then you must report the progress of the project to me every month. Remember to bring your account book. Don't think about saving money for me. Just spend it when you need to. If you spend all the gold galleons ahead of time, come to me with the account book. That's right. The knowledge involved in the Marauders map is still too difficult for you now. Next, I will list a few books for you. As he spoke, Sebastian picked up the quill on the table and began to write. After a while, he had made a list of books and handed it to the twins. Taking the list from the professor, Fred and George put their heads together. Alchemy explained how to start alchemy analysis of alchemical materials, magic and alchemy. Oh my god! So many books! Alchemy is indeed profound. Sebastian felt happy as he watched the twins carefully reading the list. The twins are smart, have a high talent for magic, and learn things very quickly. However, these two little guys have too much energy. They are either making mischief or on their way to making mischief all day long. Professor McGonagall has a love-hate relationship with the two of them, and has complained to Sebastian more than once that it would be better if the two little guys could focus on their studies. Now that the two of them have a lot of knowledge to learn, they will definitely calm down. In this way, Professor McGonagall should not have such a headache. Sebastian remembered clearly that in the original book, the twins started making all kinds of funny props after they entered senior year. Now that I have brought them on the path of alchemy so early, I wonder what kind of surprises these two little brats will bring to the magic world. He knocked on the table, drawing the twins' attention. Some books are in the school library. You can borrow them by yourself. If you need the professor's signature, you can come to me directly. If borrowing books is too troublesome, or if the library doesn't have the book, you can use OWL to order it from Flourish and Blots. Just keep a record of the bill. Our project has a year to complete, so I won't rush you, and you don't have to rush. I just need you to take one step at a time and learn every new piece of knowledge in a down-to-earth manner. Then he changed the subject. Do you know Zonko's joke shop? Zonko's joke shop? Which little wizard doesn't know this? Why does the professor ask this? Fred immediately said, yes, we bought dung bombs last Sunday. Hearing Fred's words, George became a little anxious, and he quickly nudged Fred's body with his elbow. This BD. Is this something you can say? We are just second-grade wizards. Can't go to Hogsmeade yet. Isn't this just admitting guilt without being asked? Finished. The professor should deduct points again. Maybe Professor McGonagall will be notified. Sebastian pretended not to notice the two's little trick and continued to say to them, have you ever noticed how long it has been since Zonko's joke shop released a new product? The twins shook their heads. It's been many years, and the products now are basically the same as when I was in school. Swan Alchemy once analyzed Zonko's products. His refining methods have always been similar, without any major innovations. So, Don't be impatient. Take this opportunity to learn more about alchemy instead of just focusing on the Marauder's map. Do you understand? After listening to the professor's words, Fred and George were thoughtful. Abandon utilitarianism and lay a solid foundation. Before the two of them could say anything, they heard Sebastian's slightly brisk words. By the way, this is to prevent me from receiving a yelling letter from your mother one day in the future. You must complete your homework in all subjects carefully and make sure your grades don't fall behind. I will often contact professors of various subjects to learn about your situation. Study hard. You don't want the professor to cancel the program. Fred and George immediately looked miserable. I was thinking of giving up some subjects, but now the professor is targeting me. Study hard and strive to improve your efficiency. It is such a shame that our ambitious Hogwarts adventure plan has been shelved just 1 year after it was started. There is no way, the professor gave too much. Goodbye, our adventure plan. Goodbye, our nightlife. Goodbye, our youth. Chapter 36. After sending the twins back to their dormitories, Sebastian stood in front of the office window and stretched. What a fulfilling night. This is the first time I've slept in school since I became a professor. It feels so wonderful. While the excitement is still going on, should I go find Snape for a drink? Just as he was about to leave, Sebastian vaguely saw someone sneaking towards the Forbidden Forest. He raised his hand and looked at the magic watch. 11:46. Which little wizard is so brave? How can we let this go? Interrupted my plan to chat with Snape. How bold. Thinking of this, Sebastian quickly took out a bottle of potion that could cover his own smell and dripped a few drops on his body. After all, the animals in the Forbidden Forest had very sensitive noses. Then, he cast the disillusionment charm, the silencing charm, and the name-covering charm on himself one by one, then he rode on a broomstick and flew out of the window. Did you see it? This is what we call professionalism. No matter what, I must give the little ones who wander around at night some new experiences today. You ignorant little brat, how dare you break into the Forbidden Forest at night? If I catch you, you will be in big trouble. To Sebastian's surprise, that person turned out to be Moses Robert, the professor of defense against the dark arts. This time? To the Forbidden Forest? Follow and see. So, what's wrong with the professor of defense against the dark arts? Is there something wrong with him? Sebastian carefully recalled the professor of defense against the dark arts in the original book. First-year Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort and died. Lockhart, a second-year charlatan, was given a lifetime suite at St. Mungo's after being cursed by himself to oblivion. Lupin, a third-year student, was a werewolf. He forgot to drink the wolfsbane potion and turned into a werewolf, almost attacking Harry and Hermione. Moody, a fourth grader, was in a more serious situation. His identity was replaced by little Barty. Although his life was not in danger, he was locked in a box for nearly a year. Umbridge, a fifth-year student and the Minister of Magic's senior lackey, has made Hogwarts a mess and has become an object of disgust for everyone. Wow, they are all talented. The position of defense against the dark arts professor was indeed cursed by Voldemort, but it shouldn't be that outrageous. When I was in school, apart from having a new professor every year, there wasn't anything unusual going on. Could it be that now that the main storyline is approaching, all kinds of monsters are starting to jump out? Also, what's going on with this Professor Robert? Is he also a problematic guy? Which good person would go into the Forbidden Forest in the middle of the night? I don't even know how to cast an disillusionment spell on myself. So unprofessional. I'll ask Swan's alchemist to investigate what's going on with this person. Relying on his powerful magical perception, Sebastian always followed Professor Robert from a distance, repeating the route he took exactly. At first, Sebastian just suspected Robert was a poacher or something. After all, there are many valuable things in the Forbidden Forest, such as eight-eyed spiders and unicorns, which are very attractive to wizards. But after going around in circles and spending most of the night, there was still no result. The new professor just took out a note from time to time and read it in a mumbled manner. Because they were too far away, Sebastian couldn't hear what Robert was muttering, so he had to control the broom to fly closer. Faintly, he heard a word, Gryffindor. Gryffindor. What Professor Robert is looking for is related to Gryffindor. Sebastian immediately became interested. He paid close attention and perceived every detail. Looking at the notebook in Professor Robert's hand, Sebastian felt jealous and wanted to show up and shout, "Professor, please stay. This thing is meant for me, hey. Interesting. Something Gryffindor related? Don't know what it is? It's a pity that maybe it was because Robert's notes were incomplete, but there was no progress until dawn and nothing was found. For the next 2 days, Sebastian stayed in the school, but unfortunately, Professor Robert didn't make any movement. This was not a solution. After all, unlike other professors, Sebastian did not live on campus. He had no choice but to use the most traditional and most effective method, asking for help. Hey. Professor Robert, right? I wonder what your relationship is like with other professors? Early Thursday morning, he arrived at the door of the potions office and knocked gently. Snape's distinctive voice came from the other side of the door. Enter. Sebastian glanced around, quickly entered the office, and closed the door. Snape was very surprised to see that the person coming was Sebastian. It's Professor Swan. I wonder when you learned how to knock on the door. If you were still in school, I would definitely give you 10 points for learning good manners. Sebastian chuckled. Hello, Severus, long time no see. I missed you so much. Snape's face darkened and he said unhappily, speak human language. This stinky swan always looks shameless whenever something happens. Tisk tisk tisk. I wish the students could see this face. He straightened his clothes, then crossed his arms over his chest and looked at Sebastian quietly. Bring it on. Please start your show. Sebastian ignored the sarcasm in Snape's words and stretched out his wand, casting safeguards, universal wards, and disruptors all over the office. Snape was startled, stood up, drew out his wand and asked cautiously, what's wrong? Did something happen at school? What makes the stinky swan so cautious? All the protections have been used. Seeing Snape's movement with the wand, Sebastian knew that this was a misunderstanding. However, seeing that the atmosphere had become so tense, he had no choice but to pretend to be mysterious and lower his voice and said, I suspect there is something wrong with Professor Robert. Based on my previous experience as an auror, I don't think he's a good person. You came to me just to tell me this. Snape's face turned pale with anger. You just suspect that Professor Robert is not a good person. This BD. Playing tricks on yourself again. Calm down, calm down. If you get angry, you lose. He glanced at Sebastian from head to toe and said disdainfully, this is a serious accusation. Please provide evidence. Don't worry, Sebastian stepped forward to comfort him, seeing that he couldn't fool him, I'll explain it to you slowly. He bent forward and cleaned Snape's chair. Then, with a smile on his face and a flattering expression, he bowed and said to Professor Snape, Come on, respected Professor Snape, please be magnanimous and sit down quickly. While speaking, he did not forget to extend his hand to make a gesture of invitation. Snape put away his wand and slowly sat down on the neat new chair, then stared at Sebastian, signaling him to continue with his eyes. The night before yesterday, I found Professor Robert going into the Forbidden Forest. I followed him secretly, and guess what happened? Snape had no intention of responding. He just stared at Sebastian with a blank expression and aloofness. Sebastian wasn't embarrassed either. He leaned his hands on Snape's desk and spoke excitedly. He was wandering around the Forbidden Forest all night. I overheard him looking for Gryffindor stuff. I want to find out what Professor Robert is looking for. You must help me, Severus. I can't live in school every day, so just keep an eye on it for me. If you find anything, use the two-way mirror I gave you to let me know. Snape was completely unmoved and said calmly, You don't have any evidence to prove that Professor Robert is not a good person. It's not illegal to look for something. Besides, I'm not interested even if it's Gryffindor heritage. I'm a Slytherin. If you are interested in the legacy of the four founders, why not go look for Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets first? Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets? What's so easy to find? The entrance is right on the second floor, under the myrtle tree. Besides, no one can get in without Parseltongue. Seeing that Snape was unmoved, Sebastian had no choice but to use his trump card. He took out some rare potion ingredients, put them on Snape's desk, straightened his back, raised his chin and asked proudly, Is it okay? Give me a definite answer. Snape glanced at the materials on the table, picked them up in one swift motion, and walked briskly towards his storage room. Make a deal. Chapter 37. With Snape's help, Sebastian felt more at ease. This is Snape. Extremely powerful and very smart. The ace spy has applied to go into battle. It's easy to spy on an unknown defense against the dark arts professor. The main point is to make people feel at ease. Having put this matter to rest, Sebastian threw himself into preparing for the second Muggle Studies class. Since the number of students who signed up for the Muggle Studies class was relatively small before, and the school year has just started, the learning content is the same for young wizards in all grades. So his original plan was to take classes together for grades 3 to 7. Each class lasts for one afternoon, which is equivalent to 2 previous classes, so it is only necessary to attend once every 2 weeks. After all, the students need to be brought to the Muggle world to study, and the time is too short to be enough. After the basic content is learned, the students will be divided into small classes so that the depth of learning in each grade can be increased. Among these students, children from 3rd to 5th grade only need to complete a simple task, that is to learn how to naturally integrate into the daily life of Muggles and master the basic common sense required by various types of Muggles. This is undoubtedly the original intention of the Muggle Studies course. The little wizards from the 4 academies mixed together, eating, drinking, playing and making noises in this course. This not only broke down barriers and deepened relationships, but also helped them pass the exams easily. It was really killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But the advanced classes for 6th and 7th graders cannot just be about eating, drinking, and having fun. Students need to think seriously about the differences between the wizarding world and the Muggle world, and then find ways to learn from the Muggle world, make up for the shortcomings of the wizarding world, and make the wizarding world a better place. Through this kind of educational method, not only can the magical world and the real world better understand and accept each other, but also a group of more adaptable and inclusive young wizards can be cultivated. In the days to come, they will use their unique abilities and deep understanding of the 2 worlds to bring positive impact to the entire society and create more beautiful miracles. This was what Sebastian expected from Muggle Studies class. Of course, the current 6th and 7th grade students were all selected by the previous Professor Quirrell, and I will not have too high expectations of them. All I need is to be able to pass the final wizarding exam with high scores, and then be able to blend in perfectly when walking in the Muggle world. When Sebastian entered the second Muggle Studies class, the room was already full of young wizards. Wow! So many people! Are all the 3rd grade wizards here? Why are there only little kids everywhere I look? Fortunately, this classroom is big enough, otherwise there would be no room for everyone. As mentioned before, if 3rd year wizards want to take the Muggle Studies class, they can be considered successfully registered if they submit a paper in this class. So Sebastian didn't get the list of 3rd year wizards in advance. Now it seems that there are too many people. There are almost 100 3rd grade wizards alone. In this case, it is necessary to divide the classes into different groups for teaching. Be flexible and adjust. The classroom was bustling with activity at this moment, especially with the new 3rd grade wizards, who were discussing enthusiastically what new tricks Professor Swan had come up with today. The arcade enthusiasts, led by Marcus, sat together, their faces full of excitement, discussing the game's clearance skills and strategies. Everyone was fully focused and talked endlessly about their experiences and insights. When they saw Sebastian enter the classroom, the little wizard's eyes lit up and they all stopped discussing. For a moment, the classroom was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Sebastian came to the podium and saw the papers neatly arranged on it, feeling very satisfied. Good. The students are very proactive. I submitted all the papers without having to urge myself. It seems my Muggle Studies class is still very attractive. Hey. He took out a stack of prepared test papers, old rules. Let's do a pre-class quiz first. Some little girls who had heard about Sebastian's magic of calling the roll couldn't sit still. They wanted to see some cool magic spells of calling the roll. They heard that the glowing butterflies were particularly beautiful. They all said, "Professor Swan, don't we need to name the magic today? Professor, you haven't called the roll yet. The professor is so handsome." Sebastian controlled the test papers to fly towards the young wizards and explained with a smile, "Since we are not sure how many 3rd year students will join the Muggle Studies class, we will take roll call in the next class. The list will be based on the papers you submit. Let's start the test now. The timer is 30 minutes. Come on." The little wizards grabbed their magic pens without hesitation and began to write quickly. The classroom was silent, and only the rustling sound of the pen tip rubbing against the paper could be heard. Every little wizard was concentrating on answering the questions. No one was distracted and no one spoke. Sebastian stood on the podium and first observed the expressions of the young wizards. The new wizards and witches did not surprise him. The muggles and half-blood wizards looked more relaxed, while the pure-blood wizards were a little scratching their heads. Looking at those young wizards who have already attended a Muggle studies class, they all have a relaxed look on their faces, as if the contents of the test paper are a piece of cake and cannot stump them at all. Even Marcus, a poor student, was beaming with joy. He nodded as he wrote and looked very happy. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. Not bad. It seems that the new teaching method is still very effective. Combining education with entertainment is awesome. Soon, 30 minutes passed, and the papers of the young wizards floated up and flew towards Sebastian. Marcus didn't even have time to put down the pen in his hand. He turned around and looked at his companion sitting next to him, and said to him proudly, "It's too easy. It won't even take 30 minutes. Does the professor look down on us?" He deliberately chose such an easy question. "Oh, I think I've got the OWL exam down pat. Getting an A, pass, is a piece of cake." Charlie Weasley, who was sitting behind him, couldn't stand it anymore and quipped, "Come on, Marcus. I noticed that there were quite a lot of blanks on your paper just now. You definitely won't be able to finish it in 30 minutes. Marcus immediately glared at him, "What do you know? The professor hasn't taught those questions yet." As he spoke, he raised his head and said proudly, "As long as it is a question related to Muggle objects, I can answer it all. It's just one class. When it comes time for the OWL exam, will it be a problem to get an A? Are you questioning Professor Swan's teaching level?" "You're right." Charlie agreed with Marcus. "With Professor Swan here, it's going to be hard to fail." Hearing the conversation between the two, Percy Weasley, who was not far away, nodded secretly. "That's right. Professor Swan's teaching method is indeed effective. At this rate, the Muggle Studies exam would definitely be the easiest. In the past, I had to spend a lot of time memorizing the knowledge in the textbooks. Now, as long as I attend class well, I can easily pass the exam, which saves me the time of memorizing the texts. At that time, you can focus your review on other subjects. After all, you have chosen 12 courses, and the pressure is quite high. I can still relax during Muggle Studies class today." "Nice." He glanced at the little Ravenclaw witch beside him and thought to himself. "I don't know if Penelope likes the two-player game Contra. It's just right for two people to play together." After collecting the papers, Sebastian looked at the students who were eager to try. "Great. The new students are also wearing Muggle clothes. Come on. As usual, hand in your wands. Let's go." Chapter 38. The group arrived at the school gate in a mighty procession, and this time there was a 3-decker night bus parked outside. "Wow! A 3-story night bus. It's different from last time. So cool." The young wizards who had just joined the Muggle Studies class were extremely excited. They had heard about the night bus a long time ago, and today they saw it and it really lived up to its reputation. Students like Charlie, who had already had experience riding on a bus, tried hard to suppress their excitement and act like they had seen the world. What's there to be excited about? Children just have no knowledge. Isn't it just the night bus? They moved silently and arrived at the door of the night business. Charlie and Marcus were at the front, refusing to give in. They looked at each other and could see the fighting intent in each other's eyes. Snort. "I have secured the front seat on the 2nd, 3rd floor. Get in the car first. Don't block the door." Sebastian looked at the two people squeezing each other and shouted, "Charlie and Marcus, you two, stand aside. Let the younger students go first." Sebastian waited until all students had fastened their seat belts before arranging for the driver to set off. He ignored the noisy little wizards, just found a seat and sat down, then took out the students' test papers and started looking at them. Wow! Marcus has made great progress. The descriptions of Muggle items are all very accurate. I just don't know much about the basic situation of the Muggle world. It's obvious that he hasn't read the textbook. But it doesn't matter, just learn slowly. After getting off the night bus, Sebastian led the students to the previous warehouse again. Today's class is divided into 2 parts. In the first half of the class, the new third-year students will learn how to use Muggle supplies. When learning, remember to keep 3 things in mind: what is the item called, what function it has, and how to use it. Students who have already been here can review what they have learned before, or go to other grade areas to explore new items. As for the second half of the course, Sebastian raised his lips slightly, revealing a mysterious smile, and kept the topic secret. We will explore some interesting things together. I guarantee that everyone will like it. Disband. Call me anytime if you have any questions. The young wizards immediately scattered, trying to figure out what the professor meant. Want something fun? Let everyone like it. Is there going to be a game competition later? That's great. Come on, whoever you are, let's form a team together. Soon, the first half of the class ended, the little wizards gathered together again, and were taken to the night bus by Sebastian. The little wizards were immediately confused. Isn't there still game time? Why are you on the night bus again? The gaming group headed by Marcus could no longer sit still and started asking, Professor, aren't we going to play games today? Yeah, didn't they say there was a game competition? We've all formed a team. We'll definitely take first place. Game competition. Sebastian chuckled. I never said that. But, as long as you perform well in this class, we can arrange it later. Don't be disappointed. What follows is definitely much more interesting than the game. Let's learn how to shop in the Muggle world. While he was explaining the basics of Muggle currency to everyone, the night bus arrived in front of a large supermarket. After the car stopped, he took out his wallet and waved it at the little wizards. Come on, it's time to give out money, Muggle coins, 25 pence each. When they heard that they were going to give out money, the little ones became full of energy and cheered as if they had been injected with chicken blood or taken stimulants. Give money? Going shopping? So cool. I want a Coke. I want to do a lot of shopping. As soon as they got the money, the pure-blood little wizards cheered and rushed into the supermarket. However, their excitement did not last long as they became depressed. What? You can't buy much with 25 pence. A can of Coke costs 35p, which is only enough to buy some sweets. No wonder those muggles and half-blood wizards are not in a hurry. It turns out that they have long been aware of the purchasing power of 25 pence. At this time, Sebastian's voice rang in the ears of every little wizard. Have you found that the money is not enough? Hearing the professor's teasing words, the young wizards all showed extremely resentful expressions. While silently complaining about the professor who liked to play tricks on people, they began to look around, eagerly looking for Sebastian. Unfortunately, Sebastian was still in the car at the moment, and was only speaking to them remotely through the power of magic, so their idea of condemning the professor with their eyes came to nothing. Today's class theme is cooperation and sharing, so you need to form different teams to buy things that you all want. Whether it's Coke, cookies, or even Muggle toys, as long as the team members can reach an agreement, they can all be purchased. It's just that the professor has a small request. Each team must consist of at least 4 people, and the team members must come from 4 different colleges. Sebastian's voice was sonorous and powerful, with an unquestionable majesty. If I find any team that dares not to follow the rules, don't blame me for being ruthless and taking back all their money. Sebastian was really worried about these little wizards, and he had a lot of plans in mind. The Muggle Studies class is not just about learning knowledge about the Muggle world, but also about helping the little ones to eliminate barriers. However, given the students' situation, if there are no restrictions, the young wizards from each academy will definitely only play with people from their own academy. By then, the pure-blood Slytherin students would be at a loss, as most of them have no experience in shopping in the Muggle world. Furthermore, eating, drinking and having fun are the best ways for children to break down barriers and enhance friendship. Don't think that these little guys are shy when they form a team. I guarantee that they will be happier than each other after they eat the delicious food. Besides, if those pure-blood little wizards want to know what is delicious, how can they do without the help of Muggle little wizards and half-blood little wizards? It's also good to feel the charm of cooperation in advance. Especially these little Slytherin guys. Don't look down on this and that every day. Unless you go back directly to inherit the family property after graduation, you must learn to cooperate with others when you get a job. Cooperation is not that simple. If the team has too few people, the combined money will be too little, and in the end we won't be able to buy much. If there are more members in the team, more things can be bought, but the difficulty of cooperation increases. Let's see how these little guys choose. There is a lot to learn in today's class. After hearing the professor's request, the little ones looked at each other, wondering in their hearts how to respond to this request. After all, it is not easy to select suitable players from various colleges and form a team with good tacit understanding. But faced with such strict conditions, everyone can only bite the bullet and try. Charlie was walking around the shelves in the supermarket. After hearing what the professor said, he immediately called Wood next to him and walked towards Marcus from Slytherin. "Hey! Marcus! Did you hear what the professor said? Do you want to team up?" Marcus was mentally complaining about the professor being nosy. "Why? We have to work with the Gryffindors again. Not happy? Professor, come on, can't I just buy some candy myself?" But Charlie and Wood. "After all, we are on the same school team and we can cooperate. Besides, there are fewer students in the senior grades, and it would be terrible if we couldn't find the team in the end. At that time, everyone else will be eating and drinking, but you can't buy anything. That will be more painful than killing yourself." He thought about it for a moment and immediately agreed, "No problem, then I'll find a Hufflepuff classmate, and you guys go find a Ravenclaw." Chapter 39. After a while, Marcus found his gaming partner, the little wizard named Hufflepuff. Charlie and Wood also brought in a 7th-year student from Ravenclaw, and the 5 of them formed a team. The only little wizard named Hufflepuff in the team was from the Muggle world. With his rich shopping experience, he immediately became the star of the team. The 3rd-grade wizard was not at all stage shy among the senior students. He confidently began to introduce the various products in the supermarket to everyone. "This is delicious, barbecue-flavored potato chips. We can get a bag, just enough for everyone to share. The ice cream is delicious too. There are strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate flavors. But it's hard to share among the 5 of us. And this, Aria sandwich cookies, everyone who has tried it says it's delicious. Or we can get a few small boxes of yogurt, which are affordable and much more cost-effective than Coke." Charlie and his friends were dazzled. The dazzling array of goods, introduced by the little wizard Hufflepuff, made everyone drool. Marcus fiddled with the coins in his hand and said with emotion, "Honestly, Muggle coins are so easy to convert. The 1-to-10 exchange rate is really convenient. It's very troublesome to exchange the currency of the magic world. 29 copper nuts are equivalent to 1 silver sickle, and 17 silver sickles can be exchanged for 1 gold galleon. Every time I buy something, I feel that my brain is not enough. Unfortunately, the 5 of us only have £1.25 in total. I really want to try them all." Marcus swallowed. "It would be great if I could spend gold galleons." Charlie suddenly had an idea and suggested to everyone, "Why don't we go find the professor to exchange some pounds?" Everyone's eyes lit up and they all applauded Charlie's idea. "Let's chip in and exchange a few galleons, and we can eat whatever we want. I have 1 galleon, how about you? Marcus is so generous, I have 2 silver sickles here." But before they could set off, they heard Sebastian's voice. "I'm sorry, Professor, we don't support currency exchange here. You need to make a choice." The 5 people were immediately discouraged. The way to exchange currency was blocked, so everyone had to be frugal. Marcus cursed a little. "Professor Swan is so boring, with such little money, how can it be enough to spend? How stingy." When Charlie and his companions heard Marcus' complaint, they looked at the warrior with surprise, then silently took a few steps back and distanced themselves from Marcus. "So brave! How dare you say that Professor Swan is stingy? Aren't you afraid that the professor will hear you? Although the professor is not as generous today as before, we are still spending his money. How about kicking Marcus out of the team and finding a Slytherin student? It would be bad if the professor got angry and took back all our money." Marcus saw everyone's gazes and his face turned pale. "Finished. How come you spoke out your true feelings? The professor must have heard it. I just said I wanted to exchange gold galleons with him and everyone heard it. These guys didn't know how to stop me. What now? Waiting online? Urgent." Marcus' forehead broke out in a few drops of cold sweat. His mind raced as he hurriedly explained to everyone, "Don't get me wrong. Although the professor is being stingy today, it's all for our own good. We need to understand his good intentions. If everyone had enough money, no one would cooperate. Wouldn't it be nice to just buy what you like to eat? He would rather bear the blame than let us learn the principle of cooperation." As he spoke, Marcus changed the subject, looked at his companions viciously, and used the method of moral kidnapping. "Look, the 4 of us can stand together peacefully, all thanks to the professor. He is the greatest wizard in my heart. Don't you think so?" Wood was stunned by Marcus' words. "Good job. So shameless. The flattery was deafening. He also wants to drag us down and flatter the professor together. Is this Marcus the troll? So smart? Could it be that he has been cast under the professor's imperious curse? Seeing that the atmosphere was getting a little cold, Charlie stepped forward, patted Marcus on the shoulder, and said loudly, "You are so right. The professor definitely spent a lot of time and effort on us. Let's not let the professor down and continue shopping." Looking at the shocked Wood, Charlie raised his eyebrows, feeling a little proud. Although this assist by me helped Marcus out of trouble, one cannot live without the ways of the world in this world. Now that I have helped Marcus, he will have to be obedient when we get on the court. Wood is still too young and needs more training in social skills. He clapped his hands, attracting the attention of the other 4 people. "Come on, let's figure out what to buy." Marcus wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and looked at Charlie gratefully. "Good job. Charlie actually helped me out. He is worthy of being the Quidditch captain. I recognize you." Everyone gathered together and whispered, calculating over and over again, and finally made a decision. "Take out 70p to buy 2 cans of Coke and share them among us. Then 40p for a bag of crisps, and the rest of the money is used for sweets." After returning to the bus, the little wizards' seats were very different from when they came. The new guys who joined this course only sat with people from their own college when they arrived. There was a clear distinction between them. After shopping together, they now stay with their team members to share the food. The little wizards ate, drank, talked, and laughed, without any sense of strangeness as when they first arrived. After accepting the candy from a little Ravenclaw witch, Sebastian observed the students with a smile. "Good job. Almost everyone had a Coke." Fortunately, disposable cups were already prepared on the night business, otherwise, I don't know how anxious the little ones would be. After all, no one has a wand now, so there is no way to use the transfiguration spell. Most people buy similar things, all with cola as the base, accompanied by potato chips or cookies, and some candy. But there are some alternative ones. One of the groups was made up entirely of girls. They bought a lot of fruits, such as grapes, bananas, oranges, etc. Don't say. That's pretty smart. Fruit is relatively cheaper. There are also a few boys who bought 2 bottles of bubble liquid and are taking turns blowing bubbles. After returning to Hogwarts, Sebastian returned the wands to the students. "Everyone be quiet. The time is now 6:10 p.m., and there's a delicious meal waiting for you in the auditorium, so let's make it short. This time, the essay is to compare the differences between the Muggle and Wizarding worlds in terms of shopping. The time limit is 2 weeks. 5th graders, take note. The selection criteria for the advanced class will no longer be based on the OWL exam. After all, the exam for this course will be very easy for you. So, if you want to join the professor's advanced class in your 6th grade, please take your papers seriously. In addition, the number of students in this course exceeded expectations, and the learning content of different grades will be different. Starting from the next class, we will start teaching in separate classes. We will notify you of the specific class time separately. Also, to celebrate the successful completion of today's Muggle Studies class, Sebastian smiled and said gently, "I decided to give everyone some rewards." He opened the traceless stretch bag he carried with him, and bottles of Coke and bags of candy immediately flew out of it and landed precisely in the hands of each little wizard. 2 bottles of Coke and 2 bags of candy each. You can take them home and enjoy them slowly, or you can share the joy with your friends who are not taking Muggle studies. It's up to you. Looking at the little ones with shining eyes, Sebastian waved his hand. "What are you still standing here for? Go to the auditorium and eat. Everyone disperse." Chapter 40. In the days that followed, Sebastian's life was uneventful. He was content to be a professor of Muggle studies and to lead the school Quidditch team in preparation for the upcoming inter-school competitions. Time slipped away quietly, and in the blink of an eye it was the first Sunday of October. Under the expectant eyes of the young wizards, the European inter-school Quidditch tournament began. The Quidditch players from Beaux Batons, led by Madame Maxime, arrived at Hogwarts in a magic carriage one day in advance. To this end, Hogwarts specially held a grand dinner to welcome these guests from afar. Sebastian arrived at the Quidditch pitch early on Sunday morning. The Quidditch field at this time has changed a lot, with many more spectator stands added, making it look both beautiful and generous. In order to protect the safety of the spectators in the stands, especially to prevent a hitter from hitting the bludger into the audience seats and causing injuries, Sebastian spent a large amount of gold galleons and installed a number of alchemical protective items on each stand, striving to be foolproof. After all, today's game will be broadcast live throughout Europe, and every tree and blade of grass here represents the face of Hogwarts. Snape also got up early. He came to the Quidditch field and found Sebastian busy. At this time, Sebastian was directing the staff of Swan Media to carry out the final debugging of the live broadcast equipment of the game. Seeing Snape standing nearby, he stood up and walked over to him. "Morning, Severus. I didn't expect you to be so interested in Quidditch." Snape stood by the railing, looking towards the Quidditch pitch, and said calmly, "I am a professor at Hogwarts and the head of Slytherin. Naturally, I will pay attention to the major events of the school. I just want to ask you, what are your chances of winning today's game?" "The odds are against us." Sebastian stroked his chin. "If Charlie can catch the snitch quickly, we can win." "What if?" Snape turned to look at Sebastian. "You mean, we'll probably lose?" "Right." Sebastian nodded and said helplessly, "It can't be helped. The students' individual skills are superb. But in terms of cooperation, it's still a bit disappointing. And the students at Beau's Batons are also very strong. If Charlie fails to catch the golden snitch quickly, losing the game is a foregone conclusion." "Then why are you so calm?" Snape's speech became faster. "If it were me, you should have been more strict a long time ago. The Minister of Magic will also be here to watch the game today. If he loses the game, do you think he will be unhappy? If you lose the game, will the audience watching the live broadcast have any opinion on you? Once you lose the game, I'm afraid you will no longer be the beloved Professor Swan of the young wizards. I hope you won't regret it when you are inundated with yelling letters." Sebastian looked at his old friend beside him and felt warm inside. This arrogant monster. Even though the words he said were not very nice. But his words revealed his concern for me. He patted Snape's shoulder. "Don't worry. Fudge is a pure politician. The resumption of exchanges between the three magic schools has greatly enhanced his resume. Even if he loses the game, he won't dare to offend me since he just came to power this year. If you have any opinions, you have to keep them to yourself. After all, Swan Alchemy is a big moneymaker for the Ministry of Magic. I just hope that the students will not lose heart and get their minds right even if they lose the game. As long as they win again in the future, that's fine. As for the infamy, as a Slytherin I never care about such things." "Thank you for your concern, Severus." "Care?" Snape gave Sebastian a look of disdain. "I only care about the reputation of Hogwarts." Having said that, he threw away his robe, turned around and left. After taking only 2 steps, he turned his head and said to Sebastian, "I'll save a seat for you in the professor's chair. After you have arranged various matters, remember to come over. I can give you some suggestions." Watching Snape leave, Sebastian felt a little moved. This tsundere can't even make excuses. Also give yourself some advice. This guy has never been interested in Quidditch. Are you worried that you will lose the game and feel bad? "Thank you very much, Severus." The little wizards came in one after another and came to the audience seats. A stand in the distance was filled with members of the school cheerleading team. 60 little wizards, wearing the same school uniform, under the command of cheerleading captain Penelope, are doing their best to cheer for the Hogwarts team. After completing the final equipment debugging, Sebastian looked at the stadium which was already becoming lively, and stood up and went to the players' preparation room. Charlie was making an impassioned pre-war declaration. "Today, wizards all over Europe are watching us. Try our best and let everyone see our strength. Hogwarts is the best. Come on." When Charlie finished speaking, Sebastian walked up and asked with concern, "How is it? Are you ready? Are you all nervous?" "Not nervous at all," Marcus patted his chest. "Little Beau's Batons, get it, get it." Wood also stepped forward to express his opinion. "Don't worry, Professor, I won't miss any quaffle. We will do our best." Charlie's tone was full of determination. "I believe we can win." Although the slogans were shouted loudly. But Charlie sighed inwardly. To be honest, he didn't have much confidence in today's game. After all, he usually sees the performance of his teammates. He encouraged himself silently. "Come on, Charlie. Catch the snitch early and win today." Unlike the others, Cedric was so nervous that his hands were shaking. "There's nothing I can do, he's only in the 2nd grade this year. With 0 competition experience, it was indeed a test for him to participate in such a high-end competition right from the start. Hearing what his teammates said, he tried to make his own voice, "I'm not nervous." As soon as the words came out of his mouth, he blushed and tried to correct himself, "What I mean is that I will try my best to cooperate with the seniors." "Professor, don't worry, I won't hold you back." Sebastian smiled and rubbed his head, then looked into his eyes and said gently, "Don't worry, just go for it, the professor believes in your ability." "Why? What a nice child. If all the players were like Cedric, there would be no problem in winning the game." He looked around and said loudly, "Very good. Very energetic. I only have one request, pay attention to teamwork. Come on. You are the best." Chapter 41. Unfortunately, winning the game is not just about shouting loud slogans. As soon as the game started, the Hogwarts team was completely at a disadvantage. Charlie was extremely anxious in heaven. He found that only Cedric paid attention to cooperating with his teammates, while the remaining two chasers were like two lone wolves. As soon as he got the ball, he would rush towards Beauxbaton's goal alone. With their superb flying skills, they were able to break through the opponent's defense, but their attack route was single and the opponent's goalkeeper was not afraid at all. The players of Beauxbatons cooperated extremely well, and every pass was just right, as if they could predict the positions and intentions of their teammates. Although the Hogwarts players tried their best, they were still unable to find an effective way to deal with the situation, and the situation became very passive. Facing such a well-coordinated team, goalkeeper Wood would find it difficult to resist even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Bite. The bell rang and Beauxbatons scored another goal. 40:0. There were exclamations and cheers from the audience. The Beauxbatons fans were excited, while the Hogwarts supporters looked a little frustrated. After the Beauxbatons team broke through the Hogwarts goal for the 4th time, Charlie could no longer suppress his anger, adjusted his direction, and flew towards the chasers. Just 10 minutes into the game, the opponent had already scored 4 goals. "How can we play ball if we continue like this? At this rate, the score difference would be over 150 before he could find the golden snitch." FK the golden snitch. FK the live broadcast. Now is the time to scold these idiots. Marcus, Debbie, you two batsmen, have you been hit by the confusion spell? Why are you tracing the outline of human bodies all the time? You are interfering with their attack. And you 3 chasers, can you really fight? My grandma can fight better than you. Especially Landon and Paul, you wasted several offensive opportunities. Are you worthy of Cedric's pass? If you two don't cooperate, I will definitely remove you from the school team. Even the professor can't keep you. I said so. Hearing Charlie's scolding, Professor McGonagall's expression changed in the audience. She pursed her lips, but after seeing the glaring score on the scoreboard, she didn't say anything in the end, but just sighed softly. Unlike Professor McGonagall's worries, Sebastian was actually somewhat happy after seeing Charlie's performance. Is this what a captain should be like? Charlie is a good player and he practices very hard. As the captain of the school Quidditch team, he is very polite and courteous to everyone. After all, the school Quidditch team is made up of students from 4 colleges, and Charlie is worried that being too strict would be detrimental to unity. However, he forgot that sometimes, politeness also represents distance. Normally, he was very casual when communicating with Wood. Because of the Muggle Studies class, the relationship between Marcus and Charlie has become much closer. At least on the court, Marcus is willing to follow Charlie's instructions. Charlie was really unfamiliar with Paul and his friends, and his polite conversations were usually ineffective. Now, all the scolding had a significant effect. At least under Cedric's mediation, the 3 chasers' cooperation became more decent. Unfortunately, despite the Hogwarts team's efforts, it was not easy to make up the early points difference. 280:60 The game is over and Hogwarts is defeated. Looking at the players walking out of the court with their heads down, Sebastian raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a barely perceptible smile. The outcome of the game doesn't really matter, because as a professor, he has clearly seen the growth and progress of his students in the process. Under external pressure, Landon and Paul worked together for the first time. Under Cedric's coordination, the cooperation between the 3 chasers improved visibly. After this game, the 2 batsmen, Marcus and Debbie, had better coordination with each other. Compared to winning or losing, these valuable experiences are the most valuable treasures worth cherishing. Not bad. It turns out that pressure brings motivation. Pay attention to a professor with a grin. Snape's voice sounded, I don't know how he can smile like that. If you look next to the headmaster, you'd wonder if Fudge had changed his race. Sebastian took a look and saw that Fudge's face was as black as coal, as if ink was about to drip out. His smile was uglier than crying, and it was stiffly hung on his face as he socialized with Madame Maxime and Dumbledore. Sebastian pouted cryptically and touched Snape's arm. Severus, as the person in charge of this project, I also have to entertain the guests. Please help me keep an eye on those players and make sure nothing goes wrong. It was late at night. Charlie lay in bed tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He can't sleep. Today's loss was so ugly. We didn't play like Hogwarts at all. It doesn't matter if I'm just not as skilled as others. But thinking about his teammates' infuriating performance, Charlie felt that the loss was a bit shameful. When practicing with teams from the 4 colleges on weekdays, he can handle it easily and with ease. Today's game was like a bucket of cold water poured over Charlie's head, making him feel a little at a loss. After the game, he went straight back to the dormitory, sat on the bed, drew the curtains, and locked himself up, refusing to eat or drink. His head was dizzy and he couldn't even remember how he left the Quidditch field after shaking hands and saying goodbye to the players of both batons. The only thing he could remember clearly was the disappointed looks of the people in the stands around him and the sound of some girls crying. Until now, Charlie, lying on the bed, seemed to still hear the complaints of the little wizards as they walked quickly past him. He wanted to cover his ears, but apart from his own breathing and heartbeat, it was deadly quiet inside the bed curtains. He was a little dazed and kept turning the light above his head on and off. Charlie thought of Penelope, the cheerleader. As they flew down from the sky, Charlie saw her crying with her face in her hands, while Percy was comforting her gently. As the captain of the cheerleading team, Penelope really tried her best. No matter how bad the score was, Penelope always led the cheerleading team to cheer for the Hogwarts team. As the captain of the cheerleading team, she must be under a lot of pressure. Charlie wanted to yell loudly to vent his frustration. As a seeker, he performed impeccably in today's match. Ever since he discovered the golden snitch, he has always been one step ahead of the other seeker. He always felt that he could turn the tide, catch the golden snitch first, and lead the Hogwarts team to victory. I just didn't expect that the players of both batons would actually abandon defense. They all came to surround him and interfered with his flight, resulting in him not catching the golden snitch in the end. Charlie held out his right hand toward the overhead light. He scratched it gently, as if he had caught the golden snitch. He felt a little aggrieved and wanted to loudly argue that he had tried his best. However, there was always a voice in his heart asking himself, is that really the case? As the captain of the school Quidditch team, Charlie really couldn't open his mouth to say that he had tried his best. He had long noticed the team's coordination problems, but due to personal feelings, he had never strictly disciplined everyone. From this point of view, he is undoubtedly unqualified. Thinking of the poor teamwork during the daytime match, a trace of resentment suddenly rose in his heart. Why didn't Professor Swan let the Gryffindor team represent the school? If I were leading the Gryffindor team today, the result would be much better than it is now. Feelings of resentment come and go quickly. After all, what does the current situation have to do with Professor Swan? Professor Swan provided a full set of Quidditch uniforms and the latest flying brooms, which was good enough. What's more, Professor Swan not only often gives the team special training, but also patiently teaches everyone flying skills and various cooperation tactics. Whenever Professor Swan appears on the court, he keeps talking about teamwork, as if it were his motto. Today's result is entirely my own fault. After all, whether it is formulating tactics or training players, it is all the captain's job. Charlie suddenly realized that he finally understood the difference between the captain of the Quidditch school team and the captain of the college, and also understood the responsibilities he should shoulder as the captain of the school team. At this moment, Charlie seemed to have an epiphany. The doubts in his heart instantly dissipated, and were replaced by a clear understanding of responsibility. He realized that there were no Gryffindors, no Hufflepuffs, no Ravenclaws, and no Slytherins on the school team. We all have only one common identity, Hogwarts players. In the school team, he needs to make everyone work together and compete with the other 2 magic schools as a Hogwarts Quidditch player. Charlie thought about how high-spirited he was when he first became the Quidditch captain, and now he felt like a clown. He sighed heavily, oh, it's so hard for me. Chapter 42. Facing the warm morning breeze, the owls cooed and began their busy day of mailing letters. Charlie, with a pair of panda eyes, sat in the Gryffindor public seats and concentrated on eating breakfast. When he heard the owl coming in, he just looked up and glanced at it, and then paid no more attention. His mind was now completely occupied with Quidditch. He will lead the team to train harder and then avenge the previous defeat. As for other trivial matters, he didn't care at all. Suddenly, Wood sat down next to him with a copy of the Daily Prophet. He said to Charlie with a worried look on his face, "Charlie, look at this." Charlie turned his head to take a look and suddenly felt anger rising. The front page of the Daily Prophet had a huge headline, "Sebastian Swan, the misleader, Rita Skeeter." Charlie was already feeling depressed, and after reading this report, he couldn't eat at all. Without even bothering to wipe his mouth, he picked up the newspaper and began to read it carefully. Sebastian Swan, once the most dazzling Quidditch star in the world, came to Hogwarts to become a professor in order to gild his reputation. He knows nothing about teaching and is simply misleading his students. Yesterday's competition results are the best proof of this. Regarding this situation, the author calls on everyone to reflect on whether Professor Swan is deliberately hiding his incompetence or whether he is a complete idiot in teaching. What on earth was Dumbledore thinking by letting such an idiot be a professor? The author can't help but suspect that there is some unknown shady deal between Sebastian and Dumbledore. There is ample evidence that Professor Swan brought a wide variety of alchemical items to Hogwarts before the start of the school year. Charlie became angrier and angrier as he watched. His fists were clenched tightly and he was on the verge of exploding at any moment. This hateful woman! How dare she? How could Professor Swan be portrayed like this? She even attacked the Muggle Studies class that the professor was in charge of, saying that the professor couldn't even teach such a simple class and only knew how to take the little wizards to the Muggle world to play. This is not only a waste of time, but also the corruption of wizards. The piercing sentences stimulated Charlie's eyes and aroused his nerves again and again. Charlie's chest heaved violently, and his eyes turned red with extreme anger. He held the Daily Prophet tightly in his hand, his knuckles turning white from excessive force, as if he was about to tear the newspaper into pieces in the next second. At this moment, the discussion of the little wizards reached his ears, like adding fuel to the fire, making the anger that was already burning in his heart even more intense. What the newspaper said makes sense. Isn't Professor Swan the person in charge of this project? He should be held responsible for yesterday's failure. Is Professor Swan capable? I think Professor Swan is pretty good at Quidditch himself, but he might not be very good at teaching. It's hard to say. Professor Swan is a great seeker and wins every game in under 2 minutes, but he may not know much about other positions. I completely agree with Professor Swan's views on Muggle studies. What he did is a betrayal of the purebloods. He takes students to the Muggle world all day long. What good things can there be there? Hearing this, Charlie could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He stood up suddenly and prepared to scold these little wizards who were talking nonsense. It's just that someone was one step faster than him. Marcus from Slytherin had an extremely gloomy look on his face. He raised his fist and slammed it hard on the hard dining table. Boom! A loud noise instantly drowned out the discussion of the little wizards and attracted everyone's attention. Marcus stood up suddenly and rushed towards a Slytherin student not far from him. He grabbed the student by the collar with both hands and pulled the student up from his seat. Marcus' face flushed red, and he stared at him fiercely and shouted, "Is that thing on your shoulder an ornament? Or has your brain been eaten by a troll? Don't you have your own thoughts? Just follow what the newspaper says. If I publish an article in the newspaper tomorrow saying you are a waste, will you really be a waste? I'm warning you. If I hear you say anything bad about Professor Swan again, I promise you'll spend the rest of the week in the school infirmary." The little wizard who was grabbed by the collar was not convinced. He raised his head and said bitterly, "I think what the newspaper said is absolutely correct. Professor Swan is being unfair to the pure-blooded bloodline. Taking students to the Muggle world all day long, this is depravity." Veins popped out on Marcus' forehead, he raised his fist and smashed it hard into the face of the little wizard in front of him who was talking nonsense. Before Marcus' fist could land on the little wizard's face, the two were separated by a spell flying from a distance. Marcus assaulted a classmate, Slytherin will be deducted 3 points. With a unique voice, Snape appeared at the door of the hall. He strode towards Marcus and the other man. As he walked so fast, the black wizard robe seemed to be lifted up by an invisible force, fluttering freely behind him. Snape first looked at Marcus expressionlessly, then turned his head and stared at another young Slytherin wizard with his empty eyes. He opened his mouth and said slowly, "McNeil insulted the professor, and Slytherin will lose another 20 points. Congratulations, Mr. McNeil, you just earned yourself 2 months of detention. I think we won't have to worry about running out of mucus for a long time." After punishing the 2 young wizards who caused the chaos, Snape turned around. He said to the students who were watching the fun, "What are you still watching? Don't you have classes this morning? If anyone is late to my class, he will be dealing with flobberworms with Mr. McNeil." It was not until Snape disappeared at the door of the auditorium that the students relaxed. They whispered and continued to discuss the previous topic. Charlie just couldn't stand the atmosphere in the auditorium. He said hello to his teammates from other colleges, then took wood and went outside the auditorium. After a while, everyone gathered outside the auditorium. The difference from the past was that everyone at this moment did not look high-spirited at all. They all lowered their heads with embarrassed looks on their faces. Among them, Cedric's head almost dropped to his chest. Charlie looked around, then said in a deep voice, "Have you all read today's newspaper?" Before Charlie finished speaking, he was interrupted by Marcus. "This report is complete nonsense. Not a single word of it can be trusted." "Of course I know, the newspapers are full of nonsense." Charlie's voice was full of doubt. "I was just thinking. We were all so angry when we saw the newspaper, what about the professor?" Cedric raised his head sharply. "I think the professor must be even angrier. He taught us so many Quidditch skills, and yet yesterday's game was such a mess. Now it is being misunderstood and smeared by everyone. If I were the professor, I would be so upset. Should we go and apologize to the professor? That would make him feel better." Charlie nodded and affirmed, "You are absolutely right, Cedric. Let's go find the professor now." Chapter 43. There was a flash of green flame, and Sebastian walked out of the office fireplace. He took out his wand and fired it at himself to clean himself up, then stretched and yawned deeply. "I worked very hard last night and slept very late. I didn't feel energetic when I woke up this morning. Although I don't have classes this morning, I still have to get up early and go to school. No choice, I need to prepare lessons." As a new professor, preparing lessons has always consumed a lot of Sebastian's energy. After all, it's not easy to make Muggle Studies class lively and interesting. He kept encouraging himself in his heart. "Come on. It will be easy until next year." Sebastian yawned again. "Omega, I am so sleepy. How about lying down on the sofa and taking a nap?" Boom boom boom, there was a knock on the door. "Who's so early?" According to the magical perception, there should be several students. He opened the door and saw 7 players standing outside. They avoided his gaze and did not dare to make direct eye contact with him. "Professor." Charlie opened his mouth and was about to say something, but immediately hesitated. He noticed that Professor Swan's eyes were slightly red and a little moist, as if he had just cried. Charlie was shocked, feeling that he had discovered something extraordinary. Could it be that Professor Swan was so angry that he cried after reading today's Daily Prophet? Otherwise, why are your eyes wet? This is embarrassing. He was a little hesitant, not knowing what to do next. Should I comfort the professor first and tell him not to take the Daily Prophet seriously, or should I directly apologize to the professor for yesterday's grade? Sebastian looked at Charlie, who seemed to be hesitant to speak, and smiled at him, then stepped aside to let a few students enter the office first. He stretched out his wand and used transfiguration on the sofa in the room, turning it into an oversized concave sofa for several students to sit on. "What's up?" Sebastian smiled and broke the silence. Before Charlie could organize his words, Cedric's puzzled voice came from the side. "Professor, why don't you look angry at all?" Charlie's heart skipped a beat. Cedric was still too young to read people's expressions. How could he not be angry? Didn't you see that he was so angry that he cried? Angry? Sebastian was a little confused. Charlie's heart was in turmoil and he didn't know what to do. It was simply the most dramatic thing. "How do I open my mouth?" "Professor, don't cry, we have your strong support." Is that a bit too brave? Even if you are very stubborn, you still have to know what time it is. The current atmosphere is not appropriate at all. Besides, who would admit that he cried as a real man? This is so embarrassing. I didn't expect the professor to cry before I came here. Charlie wanted to reach out and scratch his head, but it didn't seem right, so he could only scratch the floor through his shoes with his toes. He turned his head to look at the teammates beside him and found that everyone was staring at him with flickering eyes, as if saying, "You are the captain, go ahead. We all support you." Charlie wanted to swear. During training, few people thought of themselves as captains. But now he remembered that he was the captain. He cried out helplessly in his heart. "Merlin, please save me, what should I do?" Seeing that the professor was still waiting for his answer, Charlie had no choice but to bite the bullet and take out the daily prophet hidden on his body. "Professor, please don't cry. We also saw the newspaper and we are all very angry." Charlie spoke more and more smoothly, "But don't worry, Professor, we all support you. We don't believe a word of what is in the newspaper." Cedric was a little surprised. He opened his eyes wide and looked at Sebastian in confusion. Did the professor just cry? He looked carefully and found that Professor Swan's eyes were indeed a little moist, and he was immediately full of admiration for Charlie. As expected of the captain, he observes very carefully. "I didn't even notice that the professor was crying. It's really amazing. I will learn more from Captain Charlie in the future." Thinking that the professor was so angry that he cried, Cedric felt very sad and his eyes became red. "Alas, we have embarrassed Professor Swan." Sebastian suddenly turned into a black question mark face. "Who is crying? Am I crying? I don't know." He was a little confused as to what this magical development was. "How come these Quidditch players all came to comfort me and told me not to cry so early in the morning?" The students looked at him with shame on their faces. Among them, Cedric's eyes were red, and the only little witch, Debbie, was looking at her with tears in her eyes. Seeing that the atmosphere in the room was becoming increasingly strange, Sebastian quickly interrupted and said, "The professor is not crying. You all misunderstood. Professor, please stop talking. We all understand." Marcus stood up and said fiercely, "Damn the Daily Prophet for publishing such a rubbish article. What's even more hateful is that some students actually believed the nonsense in the newspaper. I swear. If I hear anyone say bad things about you again, I will beat them up even if I have to lose all my credits. And me. Count me in, too." Several little wizards rushed to express their opinions, determined to fight to the end with these ignorant classmates. Even the most well-behaved Cedric patted his chest and said that he would persuade those classmates. Sebastian felt a little overwhelmed and rubbed his brows. "Why do I feel like I'm becoming the representative of some evil force?" He seemed to see the students of Hogwarts divided into two parts. Charlie and Marcus raised their arms and led the young wizards who supported them, punching another group of students, throwing Hogwarts into chaos. Finally, Old Dang showed up and suppressed all of his own and the rebellious students. Etc. "I am not the Dark Lord." Sebastian shook his head, pushing these inappropriate thoughts out of his mind. "It must be because when I stepped out of the fireplace today, my left foot stepped out first, which made the picture look so weird." He quickly changed the subject. Come on, sit down, sit down. I really didn't cry, you all misunderstood. Also, no fighting allowed. Do you hear me? Especially you, Marcus. If I find out that you bully your classmates, I will be the first one to kick you out of the school team." Sebastian knew there must be some misunderstanding, but he couldn't figure it out for the moment. In order to prevent the conversation from getting more and more confusing, he decided to stop here and end the topic directly. He took out a magic TV and magic images from his seamless stretch bag and spoke gently to the students. "I remember that you all didn't have any classes during the first period this morning. So why don't we review yesterday's game together now?" After sending the students away, Sebastian let out a long sigh and slumped down on the sofa. He didn't take the report in the Daily Prophet seriously at all. However, the students' care still makes my heart warm. But where did the rumor that I cried come from? Tired of heart. He thought the matter would die down, but to his surprise, when he went to the auditorium for lunch at noon, he found that the little wizards were constantly whispering to each other along the way. Although the sounds were not loud, they kept drilling into his ears, making him feel uncomfortable. "Hey, did you hear? Professor Swan was so angry that he cried after reading today's newspaper." I know. Professor Swan has been hiding in his office crying all morning. You are all so out of date. I heard that after seeing off the guests at Beau's Batons yesterday, Professor Swan felt more and more ashamed. He didn't even go home last night. He cried in his office all night and was still crying this morning. Unexpectedly, he was discovered by Charlie and the others. Just think about how many good things the professor has given to the school, and yet there are still students who say bad things about him. I would cry too. Professor Swan is so fragile, he doesn't look like an adult wizard at all. Listening to the discussion of the young wizards, the corners of Sebastian's mouth twitched slightly. How did these rumors spread so quickly? I feel like all the teachers and students in the school know about it. As I walked on the road, there were always little wizards looking at me with pity or encouragement. From time to time, some little wizards would run up to me and cheer me up, telling me to be strong. Sebastian was somewhat helpless and could only smile and nod to the students. This meal can't be eaten. It's better to have the house elves deliver lunch to the office. Hateful. My reputation. Why don't you believe what I say? And the culprit, Rita Skeeter. I didn't intend to bother with a little bug like you. But the professor is very angry and the consequences are serious. You wait. I'll let Owl take me to beat you up. Chapter 44. If Sebastian had to choose the 3 most annoying people in the wizarding world, the name Rita Skeeter definitely has its place. This unscrupulous reporter has always been good at fabricating various facts and creating exaggerated news reports to attract readers' attention. But her genius lies in the fact that there is always a small part of truth in the reports she writes. She is just very good at exaggerating and fabricating facts to satisfy people's curiosity. Although Rita Skeeter has many enemies, she has prepared many safe houses for herself. She often moved back and forth between different places, which made it difficult for many people who wanted to cause trouble for her to do so. Originally, although this person was annoying, Sebastian had no intention of causing trouble for her. But now, his students are going crazy. It wouldn't be Sebastian's style not to fight back. Even if it's just to vent the students' anger. What's more, now in school, students are spreading rumors about him everywhere, destroying his image. This is unbearable. Rita, just wait. I can't hit my students, so why can't I hit you? Today, I must let you know why the flowers are so red. After school in the afternoon, Sebastian came to a house on the outskirts of Birmingham, England. According to reliable sources, Rita Skeeter left London yesterday and is now in this house. Sebastian stood in front of the door and released his magical sense. He felt that in the house in front of him, there was a wizard who was writing something at a table. Found you, Rita Skeeter. He first cast a muggle-repelling charm, then walked up and rang the doorbell next to him with an evil smile. Ding dong! Ding dong! As the doorbell rang, a lady with exquisite makeup opened the door. She raised her hand to push the glasses on her nose, and looked at the visitor outside the door with an unhappy expression. Who is it? It's so annoying to disturb me while I'm writing. Looks a bit familiar. My name is Sebastian Swan. Sebastian introduced himself happily. Excuse me for interrupting you, please don't mind. In an instant, all the displeasure in Rita Skeeter's eyes turned into vigilance. What's going on? Is this looking for trouble? I just finished saying bad things about this guy in the morning, and he came to my house in the evening. How did he know this address? Don't worry. Sebastian said gently, I have some important news to share with you. I'm sure you will like it very much. Rita Skeeter let her guard down. According to her understanding, the man in front of her had a good reputation and was very protective of his reputation. Besides, he is now a professor at Hogwarts and should not do anything extreme. Important news? It looks like he's preparing to bribe me with some information. Haha, I understand it very clearly. I know I like all kinds of news. Rita Skeeter was very proud. He is also the richest man in the wizarding world. I just made a slight move and you had to beg for mercy. Okay. In that case, let's see how valuable your message is. If it's of great value, we might consider giving you a break and saying a few nice words in the following report. I happen to be doing an exclusive interview today. As long as I can dig out the story behind this man, my article will definitely sell well. Rita Skeeter was immediately interested, and driven by curiosity, she stepped aside to let Sebastian into the house. Please take a seat. Rita Skeeter sat down across from Sebastian, placing the parchment and shorthand quill on the table in front of her, then looked at Sebastian excitedly. Mr. Swan, I suppose you won't mind if I take down our conversation with a shorthand quill. This will also facilitate our normal communication. If you're ready, let's get started now. Sebastian sat on the sofa and looked up at his surroundings. The room is very tidy and without any excessive decorations. It is very good as a temporary place to stay. He glanced at the parchment on the table and vaguely saw a title. Sebastian Swan. Below the title is an unfinished report. Sebastian chuckled. Is this a follow-up to today's Daily Prophet article? Is this a preparation for a detailed analysis of yourself and then writing a series of reports? Don't worry about that. Rita Skeeter gave a fake smile. It's just an unfinished article. Of course, its specific content will depend on our conversation. I hope we can have a pleasant exchange. Rita Skeeter made a subtle threat to Sebastian. She felt that she had taken control of today's conversation. Sebastian was speechless. This woman is so shameless. They can talk nonsense shamelessly in front of the parties involved. Miss Skeeter, Sebastian looked at Rita Skeeter with a playful look. Before we start this conversation, I would like to ask you a question. Once you enter the field of journalism, you make a lot of enemies. But from what I understand, you've never provoked anyone you couldn't afford to offend. Sebastian pulled out a copy of today's Daily Prophet and threw it on the table. In your eyes, am I some kind of soft persimmon that is easy to bully? I am particularly curious, who gave you the courage to write such a report? Before Rita Skeeter could speak, Sebastian continued. Rumor has it that you are a very shrewd character. Now it seems really disappointing. Rita Skeeter's mouth twisted with anger when she heard Sebastian's sarcastic words. Her face twisted and she said fiercely, Sebastian Swan, I think you are here to pick a fight today. Get out of my house, you're not welcome here. As soon as he finished speaking, the shorthand quill on the table flew onto the parchment and began to write quickly. Sebastian Swan is not only a hypocritical hypocrite, but also narrow-minded and vindictive. He is a dangerous person. After reading my report, Sebastian Swan broke into my residence and threatened my personal safety. The author hereby calls on everyone to see the true face of this hypocrite and not be deceived by his appearance. At the same time, the author expresses deep concern about the future of the magic world. With such a dangerous person as a professor at Hogwarts, I wonder what kind of damage our next generation will suffer. The author hereby calls for a boycott of Swan's alchemy, starting with you and me. Looking at the passionate words on the parchment, Rita Skeeter felt a twisted pleasure in her heart. Sebastian! How dare you humiliate me in my own house? You have no idea how powerful words are. When my article is published, I don't know what you can use to resist it. With your newly started Swan Media? Joke. In the field of writing, I am the uncrowned king. Waiting for the day when you are ruined. I want you to kneel before me and beg me. Chapter 45. Looking at Rita Skeeter with a distorted face, Sebastian showed a playful smile. He released a surge of magic power from his body and pressed it towards the opponent. In just a moment, the expression on Rita's face froze. She felt like she was standing in front of a giant dragon, and the opponent's aura alone made her feel a little breathless. This feeling reminded her of the past. When the mysterious man was at the height of his power, she was frightened to death just by looking at him from afar in Diagon Alley. She hastily drew out her wand and pointed it tremblingly at Sebastian. Before she could even open her mouth to utter any harsh words, she was surprised to find that a layer of white frost had covered the tip of her wand, and thick ice crystals condensed in the blink of an eye. As soon as the ice crystal appeared, it spread to her fingers at an astonishing speed. Ah! There was a sharp crack in Rita Skeeter's throat. She quickly let go of the wand and let it fall to the ground. In an instant, her entire wand was covered with thick ice crystals. Then with a bang, it fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Seeing the shattered wand, Rita Skeeter could no longer suppress the fear in her heart. She fell to the ground, trembling. You, how dare you? The Aurors will come to catch you. In Rita Skeeter's imagination, the worst outcome would be that the two sides would continue to engage in a war of words through the Daily Prophet and Swan Media. Being attacked by someone with a magic wand? This option had never entered her mind. Because, no matter how you look at it, Sebastian has no reason to take action. Although he is a powerful wizard, he has now achieved success and even become a professor at Hogwarts. How dare he? Isn't he afraid of going to Azkaban? Auror. Sebastian smiled softly. Ma'am, would you like the help of an Auror? I am always happy to help. How about this, I'll help you cast a warning spell. As he spoke, Sebastian drew out his wand and cast a spell out the window. Then he looked at Rita Skeeter and took out a small bag of galleons and placed it on the table. I'm sorry about your wand, you can go to Ollivanders and choose a new one. In less than half a minute, the door of the house was opened. Aurors are investigating the case. No one inside is allowed to move. Hearing that the Aurors were coming, Rita Skeeter finally suppressed the fear in her heart. She jumped up excitedly and rushed to the door. Mr. Auror, I want to report a crime. Sebastian sat on the sofa without any panic. He waved to the two wizards who came in, and then greeted one of them. Hello, Dawlish. After meeting the Auror, Rita Skeeter's courage suddenly returned to her. She hid behind Dawlish, pointed at Sebastian and shouted wildly. Mr. Auror, he was the one who attacked me. Catch this murderer and put him in Azkaban. Dawlish walked towards Sebastian and said seriously, Mr. Swan, please cast the flashback spell. We need to test whether you have attacked this lady. Sebastian stood up and very graciously handed his wand to Dawlish so that he could cast the flashback charm himself to check the spells that his wand had cast. Warning spell. Muggle repelling charm. Cleansing spell. More than a dozen spells flashed by, but not a single offensive spell appeared. Dawlish returned the wand to Sebastian and said with a smile, it seems this is all a misunderstanding. Mr. Swan, you are innocent. Innocent. Rita Skeeter jumped up. This man attacked me. How can he be innocent? My wand is broken. Sebastian gave Rita Skeeter a look of pity. How come such a smart person has lost his mind? Can't I tell now that the two Aurors in front of me are my people? Sebastian had already arranged everything before coming. Given his character, he never fights an unprepared battle. As for checking the wands, it was just to make it easier for Dawlish to write a report after returning to the Ministry of Magic. Shut up, are you doubting our Auror's ability to handle cases? Dawlish shouted, according to the evidence collected at the scene, your wand was clearly broken by yourself. If you continue to make trouble and falsely accuse Mr. Swan, we have the right to take you back to the Ministry of Magic and put you in Azkaban. Rita Skeeter's face turned pale. She didn't understand why this was happening. Isn't the evidence obvious? How could I possibly smash my wand into pieces? She looked at the serious-looking Aurors, then at Sebastian who seemed to be smiling, and her heart shuddered. She realized that the two groups were in the same group. She was really scared inside. How come there are two random Aurors here, both of them are Sebastian's men? It's terrifying when you think about it. How many Aurors in the Ministry of Magic sided with Sebastian? Besides the Aurors? Just how deep a web had Sebastian woven in the Ministry of Magic? Rita Skeeter didn't dare to think about it any further. She regrets it so much now. She couldn't understand why she was so blinded by greed as to provoke this guy. I was actually deceived by the good image created by Sebastian and thought he was just a person who valued his reputation. How naive. Seeing that Rita Skeeter stopped talking, Dawlish nodded to Sebastian, then walked out and closed the door. The sound of the door closing startled Rita Skeeter, who was lost in her thoughts. She looked at Sebastian with horror on her face. Can we sit down and talk now? Came Sebastian's gentle voice. Of course. Rita Skeeter shuddered and immediately nodded and said, Professor Swan, please take a seat. After Sebastian was seated, Rita Skeeter carefully sat down opposite him. Professor Swan, what do you want? Don't worry, Sebastian said soothingly, I did come here today to share some important news with you. As soon as he finished speaking, a lifelike beetle made of ice crystals appeared on the table in front of them. Rita Skeeter was in an icy hole. This beetle looked exactly like the beetle she had transformed into using the animagus. Damn it! He actually knew I was an animagus. And he knows my animagus form. What else doesn't he know? Rita Skeeter's mind was in a mess and she had no idea what to do. Ms. Rita Skeeter, is this information I am showing you valuable? Rita Skeeter suddenly showed a smile that was uglier than crying. She stammered back, yes, very valuable. Sebastian said frivolously, guess how many malicious people have coveted Swan alchemy on its way to development? And how did I treat these guys? Ms. Rita Skeeter, you have offended a lot of people. They don't like you, a little bug, but they can't find you, so they can't do anything to you. Many people are too proud of their status to bother with you. But I'm different, Sebastian changed the subject, I'm a true Slytherin. When faced with disgusting attacks, I like to fight back with even more disgusting methods. You're used to having everything go your way, so I'm going to teach you a lesson to help you remember it. As he spoke, Sebastian raised his wand towards Rita Skeeter. A yellowish ball of light lit up, then whooshed and hit Rita Skeeter's chest, disappearing over her heart. This is your punishment. Sebastian's expression turned cold, I have planted a seed in your heart. If you ever upset me again, then I'm afraid your end, little bug, is not going to be pretty. Sebastian snapped his fingers, and the parchment filled with reports on the table suddenly burst into evil orange flames. Liwo! Rita Skeeter screamed and fell to the ground. She used her hands and feet to quickly crawl to the wall. She looked at Sebastian, who was sitting peacefully on the sofa, with a look of horror on her face, as if there was a demon sitting there. Under Sebastian's exquisite control, the ferocious flames were like a docile lamb. After burning the parchment, they disappeared without even damaging the tabletop. In just a blink of an eye, the parchment on the table was burned to ashes. Sebastian stood up and saluted Rita Skeeter very gentlemanly. Ms. Rita Skeeter, I hope we won't see each other again for a long time. Besides, I sincerely wish you a good dream tonight. Goodbye. Chapter 46. Rita Skeeter sat on the ground, motionless. Her eyes were lifeless and she stared blankly in the direction where Sebastian left, like a statue. It wasn't until she heard the sound of Sebastian operating that her pupils began to focus and she slowly came to her senses. I don't know if it was because of fear, anger, or grievance, but her lips trembled slightly. But she said nothing, just kept pressing her hands on her heart. Her mind kept flashing back to the words Sebastian said before he left. I planted a special seed in your heart, seed? This damn guy planted a fierce fire seed in his heart? If I anger him again, will I be burned to ashes from the inside out by the fierce fire? How dare he? A professor actually used the notorious black magic like fiend fire so openly. The aurors from the Ministry of Magic had just left this house, and he used this dark magic to control the lives and safety of other people. Thinking of this, Rita Skeeter felt a little depressed. Auror? Hee. Of course this damn guy is not afraid, all the aurors in the Ministry of Magic must have been bribed by him. There is nothing wrong with what I wrote in my report. This person is a complete hypocrite. Everyone was deceived by him. Everyone. Even Dumbledore was fooled by him. Otherwise, Dumbledore would never tolerate such a person becoming a professor at Hogwarts. Plant the evil fire in a person's heart to control that person's life and death. This method is more powerful than that of the mysterious man. This damn guy is the new generation of Dark Lord. Who knows how many lives he has controlled in this way. Rita Skeeter felt that she had seen Sebastian's true face, but the price behind it was a little too much for her to bear. She stood up and began to frantically smash everything in her sight to vent her anger and fear. However, although she was crazy, she had intentionally or unintentionally avoided the sofa where the man had sat and the table he had used while smashing things. Only when Rita Skeeter had run out of things to smash and was completely exhausted did she trudge over to the table Sebastian had been using. When the anger subsides, inner reason and hatred begin to prevail again. Although she didn't have a wand in her hand, she decided to clear out the unsightly table and sofa even at the risk of her life. After that, she plans to use the connections she has accumulated over many years of work. Go find some powerful wizards to help you remove the fire seed from your heart. Rita Skeeter gnashed her teeth in hatred. Sebastian. Once I solve your heart problem, I will make sure you are ruined. Rita Skeeter froze as she approached the table. The beetle ice sculpture, which had shown no signs of melting, turned into a puddle of water right before her eyes. The water seemed to have life, flowing on the table and forming two sentences. Friendly reminder, I have enough confidence that no wizard can detect the seed in your heart. The key question is, do you have enough opportunities to check? Rita Skeeter's hands and feet were cold, and the feeling of fear filled her mind again. She felt that Sebastian was still monitoring her with some unknown magic. As soon as the thought of counterattacking came to his mind, he gave a warning. In a trance, Rita Skeeter felt her heart getting hot. She fell to the ground again, her hands covering her heart, and she repeated in her trembling voice, I was wrong. I won't do it again. At this time, Sebastian had already eaten dinner at home and was lying on the sofa watching TV happily. I wonder if this stupid woman Rita dares to provoke me? Thinking of Rita Skeeter's horrified expression, Sebastian felt as refreshed as if he had just finished drinking an ice-cold Coke. Although this woman is disgusting, he has no intention of doing anything to her. It's not worth getting your hands dirty for a little guy. As for the seeds in the heart, it was just a fluorescent spell that Sebastian had modified to emit light and heat. Calling the luminescent spell the fiery seed, this is called using a small spell to accomplish great things. After all, if you have done something wrong, you will be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door every day. With Rita Skeeter's style, she must have believed in her claims. With the cooperation of Deluxe in his performance, and the trigger spell he left on the beetle eye sculpture. From now on, this woman will definitely avoid me when she sees me. Sebastian adjusted the pillow behind him and happily enjoyed the evening. The days that followed were uneventful. In the original book, Halloween, which was always a peaceful day when something bad would happen, was always calm. However, during the Halloween dinner, all kinds of candies appeared on the table in the auditorium, as well as unlimited refills of Coke, which made the little wizards rejoice for a long time. After entering December, the sky in the UK became gloomy and people on the streets of London also wore thick clothes. Sebastian had arranged for the house elves to activate the alchemical devices that looked like heaters early on. These were part of the alchemical products donated to Hogwarts at the time. This makes the Hogwarts castle still as warm as spring. The little wizards wore single clothes with thin wizard robes on the outside and appeared in the classroom and the library. The only times they put on their thick coats were on the way to the herbology greenhouse and during care of magical creatures. Even when watching Quidditch matches, the young spectators had to hold their coats in their hands, otherwise it would be too hot. After all, when the spectator stands were renovated, in addition to protective devices, alchemical devices for heat preservation and refrigeration were also not left out. The main purpose is to allow the audience to relax and enjoy the fun of the game. At this time in the castle, the young wizards gathered in twos and threes to discuss the Quidditch match that had just ended. Crumb from Durmstrang is so strong. He's only in the 3rd grade, but he can perform a very difficult Wronski fake move. I admit that Crumb is strong, but Charlie isn't bad either. Yet, when Charlie followed Crumb and rushed to the ground, I was worried that he would fall headfirst into the ground. Fortunately, he discovered the other party's intention in time. By the way, our players have improved a lot. They were suppressing the opponent the whole time. It's completely different from when we played against the Beauxbatons team. Well, but the players from Durmstrang are not bad either. Even though they were 100 points behind us, they still fought back tenaciously without any panic. I agree with this. This game was really exciting. The players from Durmstrang played very well, but we are stronger. But, Charlie's luck. Who says it's not true? Who would have thought that a messenger owl would fly onto the court and almost collide with Charlie, who was flying at full speed? Otherwise, it's hard to say who would catch the golden snitch first. Haha, I want to laugh when I think of this scene. I always feel that the owl cursed terribly when it flew away. In this match, we beat Durmstrang, and in the match in November, Durmstrang beat Beauxbatons. Now it seems that as long as there are no unexpected factors, we are the strongest. Anyway, I am very confident about the next game. I believe we can win 2 games in a row and enter the finals. The next competition is next spring, which is still a long way off. But we will be playing away from home next time. I envy the cheerleaders for being able to visit those 2 schools. Hee, I'm on the cheerleading team. I heard there are a lot of beautiful girls in Beauxbatons. I will go and make friends with them. Seeing that the topic had become a little off topic, everyone unanimously expressed their contempt for the student who had just spoken. Pooh! Sebastian sat in his chair in his office. There was a letter lying on his desk. He took the letter in his hand. On the lower right corner of the envelope were written a few words, from Mr. White. Chapter 47. Looking at the letter in his hand, Sebastian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He never imagined that the culprit that caused Hogwarts to lose the game was the owl that delivered the letter to him. However, the owl was too frightened to approach me on the stands, and only delivered the letter after I returned to the office. He opened the wax seal on the back of the envelope, took out the letter, and read it slowly. Dear Sebastian, long time no see, I hope you enjoy your professor life now. After long preparations and handling of various tedious procedures, the company finally got on the right track. Although this process was not easy, it finally produced gratifying results. Now, I still have some doubts about the next specific action plan, so I really need your opinions and suggestions. I hope you can come to London soon to discuss the future development of the company. I believe that with our joint efforts, one day in the future, we will be able to see the blueprint you have drawn. Your loyal friend Mr. White. PS. Please don't reply by owl. It will be very troublesome for me if the employees see it. Looking at the contents of the letter, Sebastian smiled slightly, stood up, walked into the fireplace, and returned to the villa outside London. He called White and arranged to visit him at dinner time. At 6:30 in the evening, Sebastian arrived at a villa in London as scheduled and rang the doorbell. Soon, a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s opened the door of the villa. "Welcome, Sebastian." As soon as the door was opened, White gave Sebastian a warm hug and walked him inside, complaining as he walked, "You are such a lazy fellow. You went to Hogwarts to be a professor, and you handed over such a big company to me. I really don't know how you can be so confident. Ha ha ha, the world will continue to turn the same regardless of who you are." Sebastian laughed heartily. "Besides, why would I worry about you? Come on, you've finally come here. If you don't explain your next steps clearly today, I won't let you go no matter what." "No problem, let's talk while we eat." Arriving at the restaurant, Sebastian looked at the empty villa and sighed, "Your villa is a bit empty, have you ever thought of finding a hostess for it? Or, you can find another male master. At the very least, we have to find 2 servants." Hearing Sebastian's teasing, White was a little speechless. He laughed and cursed, "Good Sebastian, if I didn't have to talk to you about serious business, I would want to kick you out right now." He pointed at the sumptuous dishes on the table and said, "Such delicious food can't keep you from eating? You're annoying as soon as you come here. Then I'll leave." Sebastian replied with a smile, then made a move to turn around and leave. White didn't indulge Sebastian at all. He just sat down and watched Sebastian show off. Seeing that White had no intention of keeping him, Sebastian was not embarrassed. He just smiled and pulled out a chair to sit opposite White. After eating and drinking, White took out a cigar, lit it, put it in his mouth and started smoking. He blew out a smoke ring, then said seriously, "Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing House have been established. Please tell me more about the next plan. Also, I still can't help but ask, why do you insist on using the title of wizard? Aren't you worried about the Ministry of Magic getting in trouble with you?" Sebastian really wasn't worried about this. The concept of wizards didn't appear suddenly. You know, in Muggle society, there have always been legends about wizards, werewolves, vampires, and the like. The concept of wizards has been around in Muggle history since ancient times and is an important part of many cultures and legends. In the Middle Ages in Europe, wizards were often portrayed as people with mysterious powers who could cast magic, predict the future, and possess supernatural powers. In the legend of King Arthur, the wizard Merlin is a typical example. He possessed powerful magic and wisdom, and assisted King Arthur in achieving his hegemony. Beyond the legends of wizards, there are also stories about mysterious creatures such as werewolves and vampires. Werewolves are another mythical creature that is widely found in European legends. They are said to transform into wolves during the full moon and have extraordinary strength and speed. Such legends were described in detail in 19th-century werewolf stories, in which werewolf characters transformed at night and returned to human form during the day, demonstrating the dual identities of human and beast. Vampire stories are also widely circulated, especially in Eastern Europe. Muggle writer Bram Stoker wrote a vampire novel as early as 1897. Count Dracula in the novel is a bloodthirsty vampire who specifically targets young and beautiful women. This image deeply influenced later literary and film works, making vampires a classic character in horror stories. Perhaps, before the 17th century, Muggles were generally afraid of wizards. Therefore, with the support of the Vatican, the anti-witch movement intensified, and eventually led to the signing of the Statute of Secrecy. Although due to the Statute of Secrecy, the wizarding world has been hidden from the sight of Muggles. However, the legends of these mysterious creatures, such as wizards, werewolves, and vampires, have been deeply rooted in the cultural traditions of Muggles through word of mouth, written records, and literary works. Hundreds of years have passed, and Muggles have eliminated their fear of the concept of wizards. On the contrary, many Muggle writers have created one brilliant fantasy world after another. Let more and more Muggles become interested in these wonderful worlds and become addicted to them. Thinking of this, Sebastian smiled slightly. He picked up the cup and took a sip of Coke. "Haven't you read Mr. Tolkien's work, The Lord of the Rings? Isn't this work written by Muggles? I know there are some powerful wizards in the books. However, the images of wizards described in the books." White hesitated for a moment and said, "It's a little different from us. Isn't this better?" Sebastian leaned back in his chair with a confident smile on his face. Who can truly define what a wizard should be like? You? Or me? Or one of the thousands of Muggle writers? Whether wizards or Muggles, everyone has a unique understanding of what a wizard is like. Just like Muggles, wizards come in many different forms. The role of wizard publishing houses is to attract more Muggle writers to create and use their works to make more muggles accustomed to the concept of wizards. The purpose of wizard films is to bring these different images to the big screen. Let muggles become interested in the wizards in movies and TV shows, and then fall in love with wizards as a group. Once the image that is unique to our magical world appears, it will be perfectly integrated into the images of many wizards. As for the Ministry of Magic that you are worried about, Sebastian said with a hint of contempt. The Ministry of Magic controls everything in the world, how can it control the literary works of muggles? What is the relationship between wizards created by muggle authors and wizards in the magical world? Besides, Sebastian spread his hands and said something very confusing. You live in the muggle world as a muggle, run a muggle company with muggle methods, and you arrange a team of muggles to film works written by muggle writers. Everything is so muggle. Isn't it? Why worry about the ministry? At this point, Sebastian paused. By the way, since we are talking about muggle identity, he sat up straight, looked into White's eyes and asked, it's been 11 years. Are you still not going to restore your wizard identity and surname, White? Of course, you can let me call you by another name in private. Blake. Chapter 48. Hearing this familiar name, White seemed a little silent, and fell into deep thought. He didn't say anything, just puffed on his cigar. Sebastian didn't urge him, but just watched White smoke quietly. The smoking man in front of him has another identity in the wizarding world. He comes from the famous Black family. He is the youngest son of the Black family, Regulus Black, and he has an older brother named Sirius Black. In the original book, although he joined Voldemort's Death Eaters, he did not do anything bad. Regulus began to follow Voldemort at the age of 16, just for the Black family and the glory of pure blood. Later, he began to hate Voldemort's cruel methods. He realized that his beliefs were wrong, so he strengthened his determination to fight Voldemort. Finally, he found an opportunity and exchanged his own life for Voldemort's Horcrux in order to destroy Voldemort's immortal life. Sebastian likes this tragic character in the original work very much. After Regulus entered school, he has been showing his friendship to him. Similar personalities also brought the two together and they became good friends who could talk about anything. Funny enough, Sebastian and Sirius didn't have a good relationship because of Snape. Sirius was very unhappy when Regulus and Sebastian became friends, and the two brothers often had arguments about this. It's not like Sebastian hadn't thought about stopping Regulus from joining the Death Eaters. It's a pity that the Black family was one of the first families to support Voldemort, and got on Voldemort's chariot very early. After Sirius Black, the eldest son of the Black family, openly opposed Voldemort and was expelled from the family. The Black family is in a very awkward position among the Death Eaters. Therefore, for the Black family and for the glory of pure blood in Voldemort's mouth, Regulus joined the Death Eaters. Sebastian and Regulus did not break off their friendship because of this. Although they became enemies on the surface, they kept in touch privately. If you want to know a person, you can't just look at what he says, but also look at what he does. This is what Sebastian told Regulus, and Regulus remembered this advice from his good friend. However, he was still attracted by the pure-blood future that Voldemort talked about. Until he realized that Voldemort had no future for purebloods at all, and everything Voldemort did was for his brutal and dictatorial rule. The collapse of his ideals and the conflict of his inner moral sense plunged Regulus into despair. Voldemort was at the height of his power, and the Black family was in too deep for him to do anything. He thought of his friend's warning to him, so he found Sebastian and told him about his helplessness. Sebastian still remembers Regulus's face, filled with remorse and crying bitterly. But he didn't have any good solution at the time. After all, Regulus was not alone, he also had a mother, and his mother was Voldemort's most staunch supporter. If Regulus betrayed the Death Eaters, Voldemort would not let the Black family go. However, Sebastian knew Regulus' character very well and knew that he would make the same choice as in the original book. In order to save his friend's life, Sebastian could only tell Regulus in a veiled way. If one day you discover the secret of the mysterious man's immortality, don't think about dealing with it alone. I will help you. To be on the safe side, Sebastian secretly found Regulus's house elf Creaker and asked it to ask for help when Regulus was in danger. Sebastian was very glad that he had managed to keep this in mind and asked Creaker to pay attention to Regulus' safety. Regulus discovered the secret of Voldemort's immortality and decided to deal with the Horcruxes himself. When Creaker cried and asked Sebastian for help and took him to the cave where the Horcruxes were hidden, Regulus was being dragged into the water by the Inferi. At the critical moment, Sebastian saved Regulus. Looking at the lake bottom filled with Inferi, Regulus became depressed. He was no longer willing to go back and be Voldemort's accomplice. With Kreaker's consent, he begged Sebastian to erase Kreaker's memory and then arranged for it to be returned to the Black family. Afterwards, Sebastian took Regulus away to treat his body, which was ravaged by the poison. However, although Regulus' body was healed, the mental trauma made him unable to recover and he completely turned into a walking corpse. Heart disease needs heart medicine. In order to cheer up his friend, Sebastian drew a blueprint for Regulus. A future where wizards no longer have to hide and live openly. Regulus was attracted to this ideal. Finally, he cheered up. Under Sebastian's arrangement, he left the wizarding world and lived and studied in the Muggle world as a Muggle. For 11 years, he had basically not returned to the wizarding world, except for a secret visit to his mother when she was dying. After that, he had been staying in the Muggle world, helping Sebastian run his various businesses. When the entire cigar was burned out, Regulus sighed deeply. Just call me White. Black died 11 years ago. He died in that cold, damp cave full of infernal corpses. He paused, relief in his voice. Maybe one day I'll take back the Black name, but not now. I really like the blueprint you drew for me, and I regard it as a new ideal. Regulus shook off his previous depression and spoke with fighting spirit. I work very hard to let wizards live openly in the sun. Besides, I quite like this Muggle identity now, and I also like what I am doing now. What about Kreaker? Sebastian asked, how about returning your memories to him and letting him come and take care of you? Kreaker. Regulus said with some emotion, I feel a little sorry for it, even though I asked for its consent when I erased its memory. But since I've already modified its memory, let it think I'm dead. It doesn't need anyone to take care of it now, so it can live a more relaxed life. Besides, I am a Muggle now, and it is not appropriate for a house elf to be around me. When I pick up the wand again one day, I will restore the last name of Black, return the memory to it, and recognize it. Regulus sat up straighter, staring at Sebastian intently. Okay, let's not talk about my personal affairs today. There's a famous saying among Muggles, time is money. Let's talk about the company's development and planning. My friend. Chapter 49. Talking about the development of the company, Regulus was immediately filled with energy. In the past 2 years, after obtaining sufficient funds, we have supported a large number of Muggles to enter the financial, mining, energy, computer and manufacturing industries. These agents are unaware of each other's existence. They have no connection with each other at all, and we stay behind the scenes and do not interfere with their development. These forces we support have some gains and some losses, but overall they are developing rapidly. In addition, regarding the list you provided earlier, I have made a lot of investments in some Muggle companies around the world, such as Microsoft, Apple, etc. However, there is something wrong with your list. Many of the companies on it have not yet been established, such as Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc. Sebastian smiled knowingly. It's right that these companies haven't been established yet, it's only 1990. Amazon wasn't founded until 1994, Google wasn't founded until 1998, and Facebook was even earlier. Making these lists in advance is just a precautionary measure, paying attention to them in advance so that you can take the initiative in the future. Of course, if possible, it is not impossible to acquire these companies in advance. There is absolutely no problem with the list. Sebastian smiled mysteriously, this is a list provided to me by a prophet. Just keep an eye on the founders of the companies on the list. Once they have plans to start a company, we will act decisively. In just a few years, Muggle money will flow into our pockets. You are so mysterious all the time. Regulus was a little helpless. I don't even know where you found the prophet. Of course I believe in that list. After all, the companies we invested in have brought us huge profits. Regulus nodded thoughtfully, thinking that Sebastian had not made any additional arrangements with those companies. In that case, our position for these companies is money bags, right? Don't interfere with their development, just make money from them. What about the real estate we invested in? Don't tell me you bought that land to grow crops. The agent we arranged in the East has asked me many times. Please give me a rough arrangement. As a member of the Crossing Army, how could Sebastian not know the value of land? The next 20 to 30 years will be a period of rapid development for the real estate industry. In just a few years, the value of these lands will increase by several times, which is a big business that is sure to make money. However, Sebastian had no intention of entering the real estate industry. Like he said, he has no interest in money, he makes money to develop the wizarding world. Therefore, he had other arrangements for the purchased lands. These lands can be put to great use. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. Just think of wizarding films and wizarding publishing. We want to bring those classic works of Muggles to the big screen, after the images of those works have been deeply rooted in people's hearts. We want to create a grand magical world in the Muggle world. Regulus' eyes lit up. We can learn from Disneyland and build our own unique magical park. That's right. Sebastian smiled confidently. This is why we buy land around the world. Besides, building a magic park is a win-win project. The magic paradise is not only of great significance to us, but also has many benefits for Muggle governments of various countries. Not only can it bring a large amount of tax revenue to the Muggle government, it can also provide a large number of excellent jobs and promote the development of local tourism. I believe that in view of these benefits, the Muggle governments of various countries will give us preferential policies. When the time comes, these Muggle governments will be our best helpers in promoting concepts such as wizards and magic. Sebastian talked freely. Our magic park will be bigger, cooler, more luxurious, more handsome, and more interesting. It is also equipped with various film and television peripherals, such as dolls, clothes, armor, etc. Using the method of entertainment invasion, within 10 years, the concept of wizards will become popular all over the world. This is the first step towards breaking the statute of secrecy. By then, Sebastian changed the subject, there will be Muggles all over the world wearing wizard robes and performing cross-dressing. By then, we wizards will be able to appear in the Muggle world as we please. By then, what is real and what is fake and what is real, even if we are wearing wizard robes, Muggles will just think that we are imitating characters in movies and TV shows. It's not like now, if you want to walk in the Muggle world, you have to imitate the dress of Muggles. Regulus' eyes lit up when he heard this. He slapped his thigh and said excitedly, "Your plan is great. It is not only a silent benefit, but also a win-win situation. I knew it was right to trust you." Looking at Regulus's admiring eyes, Sebastian felt a little flattered. Of course, this is just the first step in breaking the statute of secrecy. The rest will be much more troublesome. It could be smooth sailing, or there could be bloodshed. Hearing that a bloody conflict might occur, Regulus hesitated for a moment before his eyes became determined. He said in a powerful voice, "No matter what, we are not afraid of any challenge. Don't worry, we can make some arrangements in advance." Sebastian's voice became a little playful. "For example, we can stay behind the scenes and support a Muggle political party that is close to wizards to come to power. Even if a conflict occurs, we can win over one group and then use force to intimidate the other group. Money, health, and power will always attract a group of Muggles to us." Regulus sighed a little. He said with emotion, "Sebastian, you always have such a long-term vision. Compared to you, the Dark Lord's ideas and methods are ridiculous. Force conquers everything. Haha. Sebastian has some different ideas about this. The essence of the world is the survival of the fittest, and the winner is king. After all, history is often written by the victors. There are many ready-made examples in the Muggle world. The first emperor of the East wanted to unify the world, and he succeeded. The image of him in people's minds is that of a great man who has achieved unprecedented achievements. The mustache guy in Europe wanted to unify Europe, but he failed. So he became the sinner who started the war. Of course, comparing Little Mustache with the first emperor is completely flattering Little Mustache. Compared with the Muggle world, the wizarding world is a place where one can change everything with personal power. Now it seems that the Dark Lord's ideas are a little ridiculous. But what if he had won? If the Dark Lord had won, he would be the representative of justice. However, the Dark Lord was not powerful enough to ignore everything. At least, Dumbledore was someone he could not defeat. Sebastian didn't like the Dark Lord's ideas either. So, he joined the camp against the Dark Lord and contributed to the peace in the wizarding world. Sebastian smiled at Regulus. Although the magic world is small, the situation is also complicated. But don't worry, I will take care of everything in the wizarding world. I'll leave the Muggle world to you. After all, no matter what you do, you can't do without sufficient financial support." Regulus was full of confidence. "Don't worry, I will take care of the Muggle world. I will definitely live up to your trust and cheer for the future of the wizarding world. Come on. Let's not take the topic too far. You should first tell me about the specific plans for Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing House. These are two major projects that I am personally responsible for. You can't keep it secret. Chapter 50. Of course, Sebastian would try his best to meet Regulus's request. After all, this is the most important step in his plan for the Muggle world. This is why other projects support Muggle agents and let these agents develop on their own. As for Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing, Regulus will be personally in charge. Sebastian rolled up his sleeves, took out his wand and cleared the table. He took out a roll of parchment, spread it flat on the table, and then used an enlargement spell to make the parchment as large as the table. Then he took out a quill and began to draw a mind map on the parchment himself. Regulus was overjoyed to see Sebastian doing it himself, and he quickly stood up and stood next to Sebastian to see what he had written. Sebastian explained to Regulus as he wrote, "Let's start with the Wizarding Publishing House. As the rule maker, Wizard Publishing House can regularly publish recruitment topics and solicit submissions from around the world. The genre of the work can be adventure, romance, action, suspense, etc. As long as it's excellent fantasy-related work, we'll accept it." Sebastian clenched his fist, showing his ambition. "We want to make Wizard Publishing House a holy place for fantasy lovers in the Muggle community." Sebastian drew two branches under the publishing house. Wizard Press, we're going to split it into two. There are physical publishers and electronic publishers. These two types of publishing houses can be roughly divided into the male-oriented team targeting male readers and the female-oriented team targeting female readers. Physical publishing houses still follow the existing rules, but electronic publishing houses are an emerging industry. Sebastian scribbled on the parchment, heavily marking electronic press. The internet is becoming more and more popular nowadays, and we should see the broad prospects in it. Physical books have a long publishing cycle, high requirements, and slow results. But e-books are different. We can be less demanding of them. Based on the memories of his past life, Sebastian roughly drew a picture of an e-book website. We want to build the largest e-book website so that authors from all over the world can publish their works here. On the internet, information is transmitted very quickly, so what authors write can be effective quickly. These authors don't need to have a very high level of literary literacy, as long as their stories are interesting and their sentences are easy to understand. Oh, right, Sebastian remembered a detail and quickly explained to Regulus. From now on, we can establish branches of Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing on those lands. This will open up a multilingual market. After all, there are still many countries that don't speak English. Sebastian straightened up and looked at Regulus, and explained to him in detail the operating mode of the online article he had read in his previous life. The two of them asked and answered questions, and they kept discussing in between. After a while, Regulus figured out the general process. "I almost forgot," Sebastian patted his head as he looked at the densely drawn parchment, "don't forget about Witcher Films. Witcher Publishing and Wizarding Films can have a very good synergy. For e-books that have been proven in the market, we can publish them as physical books. For those with particularly outstanding results, we'll adapt them into movies or TV series." Regulus felt dizzy after listening to this and immediately asked for a half-time break. He lit another cigarette to cheer himself up. At this moment, his admiration for Sebastian was like a torrent of water, and the emotion in his heart was like a surging tide. How does this guy know so much? It sounds very logical and well-reasoned. It's amazing. A guy who stays in the wizarding world every day knows more than me who has always stayed in the Muggle world. It seems that this guy really learned a lot while traveling in the Muggle world. Regulus took a deep puff of cigarette, staring at the parchment that was already covered with densely written words, and played the knowledge that Sebastian taught him in his mind like a movie. Only after he made sure nothing was missing did he turn around and look at Sebastian. "Next, let's talk about the development of Wizard Films. I have already bought the copyrights of all the classic works you mentioned as you requested. That's a huge expense. Here are some copies of the acquisition contracts. Take a look." He took out a few documents and handed them to Sebastian, showing off with a smug smile on his face. "It's from the Lord of the Rings. It's from the Hobbit. It's from the Chronicles of Narnia." Regulus introduced the copyright contracts in his hand one by one, like they were his own treasures. "I also followed a few Muggle writers you specifically asked me to write about. Based on the prophecies you provided, they will write works such as Twilight and A Song of Ice and Fire. Although there is not even a shadow of these works, as soon as they start writing, I will go to them to buy the copyright." At this point, Regulus showed a puzzled expression on his face. Can the prediction be so detailed? Aren't they all some specious sentences? I'm afraid I'm taking a fake prophecy class. I wonder where Sebastian found such a great prophet. Very good. Sebastian gave a thumbs up. He expressed great appreciation for Regulus' work efficiency. After obtaining the copyrights of these works, Wizard Pictures will have no worries about having no good movies to make in the next 20 years. After all, these works have all been tested by the market in their previous lives, and each one is better than the other. Sebastian has seen the Witcher films take off. Honestly, Regulus said with some emotion, these works are very good. I have been staying up late to read them recently. If I want to give the Witcher films a good start, I must be very careful in choosing the works I want to produce. But I'm already overwhelmed by the choices and I really can't make up my mind. What do you think? Sebastian. That's easy, Sebastian said with a confident look in his eyes. For the first work, choose The Lord of the Rings. I recommend a director to you. Peter Jackson. He wrote Peter Jackson's name on the parchment and told Regulus, you must dig him out at all costs. If he wants money, we give him money. If he wants people, we give them people. In a word, we must keep him here. Seeing Regulus frown, Sebastian patted his shoulder. This is a very talented director. Believe me, he will be able to shoot this work perfectly. Once this movie becomes a hit, we will be able to gain a firm foothold in the Muggle film and television industry, and all our efforts will become meaningful. When that time comes, we will launch a wide variety of film and television related peripheral products, such as exquisite posters, cute dolls, etc. These will undoubtedly make fans love them. Not only that, we can also consider adapting it and producing cartoons specifically for children. After all, children's imaginations are always full of fantasy, and they are naturally our target customers. Also, don't forget to find a strong gaming company to cooperate with and adapt this story into an amazing computer game. You know, the video game market has unlimited potential. Regulus' eyes lit up when he heard this, and he nodded like a chick pecking at rice, agreeing with what Sebastian said. It looked like someone who had been walking in the desert for many days finally seeing an oasis, or like someone who had been groping in the dark for a long time finally seeing the dawn. Regulus hungrily memorized every word Sebastian spoke and wrote on the parchment. He felt like a person groping in the dark, and Sebastian was the guiding light, illuminating the way forward for him. Okay, I'll do as you say. I'll form an animation team. As for the game company, I remember we invested in a company called Ubisoft. We can let this company develop it when the time comes. By the way, Sebastian, do you have any good suggestions for works in the wizarding world? After all, our ultimate goal is to bring works from the wizarding world to the big screen, so that Muggles can get to know the wizarding world through this form. Sebastian looked up at the clock on the wall. Before he knew it, it was already 11:30 in the evening. He threw the quill on the table. His neck became a little stiff after working at the desk for a long time. He slowly twisted his neck, trying to relieve the discomfort. There's no need to rush this. Let's first completely open up the Muggle world. We are real Slytherins, we must be patient. But don't worry. Once we become famous, I'll bring a wizard to meet you. He is now the most famous writer in the wizarding world. His work fits our theme very well. Sebastian stretched and said to Regulus with a smile, he is very interested in becoming a celebrity in the Muggle world. You should have an impression of him. His name is Gilderoy. Lockhart. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.